All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our special meeting today. It is June 30th at 9 a.m. We will go ahead and start our meeting. I see we are fully staffed with Mr. Kirk back from his adventures, so if I could put him on the spot and have him lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. All right, our next item will be the oral communications. Each person wishes to come up and speak. You have up to 3 minutes to speak before the board about any item that is not currently on the agenda. So if you want to talk about something that's on the agenda, you'll have opportunity when that item comes up. This is for time to speak specifically about items that are not currently on the agenda. We ask that everybody be polite to us. We'll be polite to you. And this will be a good reminder to turn off your cell phones or silence your cell phones if you have not done such already. We wish to respect the people who are speaking. So I'll open it up. Anybody wish to come up and speak?
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Robert Newton, and it's my hope that you guys can stop the plan of Caltrans to put that four-way stop on 49 and Shaw's Flat Road. I know you guys were kind of disgruntled to hear about that plan. You know, they're going to trade off a T-bone for a rear ender there, and I don't think they actually planned well enough for their decision to go ahead with that. Don't they have to do a traffic study, you know, where they lay those strips out and count the cars? Any feedback on that?
So during public comment, we have you address the board. We won't be answering or taking away from your time, but I'll have a comment for you in a moment when you're done.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's basically why I'm here, is to not have that four-way stop there. It just constricts traffic, and I mean, it's a big, long straightaway, and no one wants to stop there. And I don't think there was enough cross traffic really to warrant that. And so there was a couple of fatalities there, I understand. I mean, I'm not really that aware, but apparently with the Highway Patrol and Caltrans, they went ahead and made that decision. And as a county, aren't we a sovereign county? We have a border, and I don't know how much we charge for. We charge Caltrans for letting them run their highway through our county. But anyway, it's my hope that you can stop that. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. So anybody who wishes to address the board, like I said, we're not going to respond back to you. However, Supervisor Brandon's business card is out front. It's his district. My business card is out front. So if you wish to reach anybody who wishes to reach any of your supervisors for any of the comments made at all at the podium, you're more than welcome to do that.
So no response on that?
Yeah, during public comment, we don't give responses back. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
But you could, like I said, grab our cards. We can respond then.
Good morning. My name is Sasha Farkas. I am president and CEO of Left Coast Land Clearing. I am a local vegetation management company. We do a lot of fuel reduction projects and reforestation projects. And I am here today to talk to you a little bit about the MSA. County's been putting out projects for quite a few years now, and there's a lot of concern over how the projects are awarded. I know I've talked to some of you in the past regarding that. There is currently a project that they are trying to make an award on, and I have protested it. I would just want to bring to the board so you know what's going on there. They're trying to award a contractor that lied in their proposal, and that information is in the protest. They're also not in compliance with the prevailing wage reporting on a current project they are on, so they're already violating the law on a project they're already doing for the county, yet the county wants to give them another one so they could double down on that. On top of other issues in their proposal that I have seen, like them talking about the Calaveras Ranger District, which is not anywhere part of this project, talking about reporting the certified payroll to the county, which if you know anything about public works projects, it gets reported to the state of California, not to Tuolumne County. We can go on and on there. There's also some, I don't know what you'd say, anomalies with some of the scoring of the project from these judges. Out of the 5 scorers, certain contractors, our company being one of them, was scored extremely low by just one of them. There's another judge that actually elevated points to a specific contractor that they're trying to award to. So 2 judges have some kind of oddities with the scoring that just doesn't make sense. You know, if there's out of 5 judges, if 3 of them are in the mid-90s, and then all of a sudden you have one at 79, something's probably off. Or if you have one that gave more points to a different contractor, something's not quite right. Last year, there's a staff member that actually changed the scores in the middle of the award process, and they ended up having to throw out that job and put it back out to bid. So it's not anything new, but as contractors, and I'm not the only one frustrated, I've talked to a few others, I just wanted the board to be aware of what was going on. And I did bring copies of the protest for you guys and also for current county council to take a look at. So
Before you do that, so there should be a basket underneath the podium. So if you would put that in there, then we'll collect all of those for the staff and for us at the end of the meeting. Thank you, sir. Okay, any other public comment?
Good morning. As you know, last September I made comments about the alleged illegal fire hydrant that Mike Holland had installed on the high school road project. Later, I made a Public Records Act request at the Community Development Department with a list of 15 items that I knew should exist about Mike Holland's high school road project. I was told at that moment the request would be filled within 2 weeks unless I received a notice from County Council saying otherwise. Well, of course, the otherwise happened, and it took another 3 weeks as documents trickled in at least 100 pages. As I began the review, it became clear that half of the documents were duplicates and still not giving me the information or documents I had requested. Whose fault was that? CDD, Roger Root, County Council? At any rate, I was clearly being blocked to get public information on this project. Other members of the public have had similar experiences that County Council is not giving the information requested, causing multiple requests over and over. Sounds like this practice has been going for years, a strategy to frustrate the public as we hold elected officials accountable. I also want to thank the Tuolumne County Civil Grand Jury for all the work they did to unveil the corruption that is going on in our county government. Great job, very thorough, well written. However, I did notice one thing was missing. There was no mention of the fact that a Tuolumne County water line had been tapped into by Mike Holland when he put in the fire hydrant without a permit. The grand jury has made it very clear that there is no permit for the fire hydrant, despite Mike Holland and Roger Root saying otherwise. But Mike Holland and Root forgot that you must have a paper copy, not just made up words, to have a permit. But there are 2 things going on here, installing a fire hydrant and tapping into a county-owned water line. The DA has made it clear that there is insufficient evidence to prove a crime was committed as it relates to the installation of this fire hydrant. The grand jury's chart, however, on page 40 clearly shows whether the fire hydrant was public or private. It needed a permit. And grand jury has concluded that there was no permit for this fire hydrant. But the issue not covered in the report was the fact that Holland tapped into the public water system without a permit, which is a fact, a crime. According to the Penal Code 498, Section B1, any person who diverts or causes to be diverted to utility services, in this case water, by any means shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. It matters the water line was tapped into without permission and that the water has been diverted from the public water line to the fire hydrant. I encourage both the district attorney and sheriff to begin this investigation again for a possible criminal act. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment?
Good morning. My name is Tracy Reynolds, and I received an email on June 2nd. Hello, Tracy. Thank you for your service on the Tuolumne County Air Pollution Control Hearing Board. Your official term on the hearing board has expired as of May 20th, 2026. If you would like to reapply to one of the vacant openings, please see the link below, blah, blah, blah. Well, from Kent Rasmussen. And I never went to a meeting. I was appointed as an alternate for Catherine Sari, and the board was never filled. So we had 1 year of a trial run, but the board, the attorney that was on the board refused to be on the board with Catherine because she speaks up about things. And another attorney applied that I'm aware of and was turned down, so there was never an air pollution control board. So basically, I feel like you guys have failed the public, and you've denied the ability for us to get together as a hearing board. You've refused to appoint a very qualified attorney that had applied, according to my knowledge. I could be wrong. This is a joke, and you're not helping our county, and the year is up, and we never had a chance to do anything. And it's a 3-year term from what I understand. I propose that I get to serve a 3-year term. We never even had a board. And so I would like to take the rest of my time to bring awareness to, I feel passionate about our children and how our children are being treated. And the United States of America is the #1 consumer of child porn. And around 2020, there was the Wayfair thing. Well, now it's a company called AMENDED, and they're selling Beanie Babies that go for $12 for $40,000. And we all know that's children, and it's, you know, so if anybody is aware of this or come across any on Etsy or any sort of eBay website, to report it to the FBI. There's a department, you know, for exploited children, and I think that it's our duty to protect our children. And I'm here to spend the rest of my time, you know, either on the Air Pollution Control Board or bringing awareness that our children are not for sale, you know, by anybody. And we need to speak up. We need to stop sitting, you know, I love to scroll through my phone, but I want to make a difference for my grandchildren, for my children. And so AMENDED, VINTED, seems to be the site that they want to sell our children on, and I want to bring awareness to that, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, everyone. All right, staff reports. Any staff want to come up and... Oh, thank goodness.
Morning, Board. Dave Vasquez, Sheriff of Tuolumne County. I'd be remiss to not take this opportunity as we approach Independence Day to not reflect on gratitude and what it means to not only myself, but my office and the community. We won't see each other before the 4th of July, I don't think, again, we're in this type of a setting. So just a reminder of to be grateful for 250 years that America celebrates freedom that has come at no other cost but the ultimate sacrifice. Not only just from military service members, both here on our soil and in foreign lands, but also amongst the peace officers who are entrusted to maintain and uphold that Constitution that we have spent 250 years defending. To pursue liberty and happiness. What that looks like from my perspective is essentially, just to offer a glimpse, is 3,000 to 4,000 incidences that your sheriff's office and many other public service and safety organizations are responding to every day in our county. That's not just the sheriff's office, that's our California Highway Patrol, our Sonora Police Department, our state parks partners, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. It's important that we reflect on the fact that freedom isn't free, and there's always something to be grateful for. And regardless of the issues that we see that are coming before this board or coming to any of us during the community events or engagements, is that we have small problems in the perspective of the fact that We have people who are towing the line every single day, of multi-generational workforce, of individuals who are coming out of high school and wanting to pursue service for their community and their country, and I think that that's something that carries the highest level of nobility. Just in our office alone, over this last month, like I said, we have seen summer hit this county in a big way, and earlier we've exceeded over 10,000 calls for service in various degrees, not only civil but property crimes, violent crimes, domestic violence, and we are seeing a rise in sexual assault specifically to underage individuals. Just to highlight one of those cases, we had a general investigations case specifically for internet crimes against children, and we are receiving a lot of those complaints out of our Sacramento regional office and forwarding those here to this jurisdiction. The last case that we just made, you may have seen the press release that went out over the social media platforms, secured tens of thousands of images specific to not only AI-generated type photos of utilizing real underage persons' images to create I want to say child porn, but so everybody understands, it's basically material that's exploiting children sexually. We're seeing those cases more and more, and we're getting a constant stream of those complaints coming down from the ICAC task force. The reason why that's important to highlight is because when we get these cases, they have to be vetted. That means a detective has to look at each one of these images to vet it and then generate a report out of all of this material. And the toll that that takes on an individual to work child sex crimes against children, I can't begin to explain to you. And basically, I want to highlight that because it comes full circle when we talk about what it means to toe the line on behalf of the people. And these types of crimes are investigated at all agencies from all of our public safety partners. Another case that got a lot of notoriety was Sunday evening. We had a homicide here in Tuolumne County. I was just speaking at the Twain Harte Homeowners Association, and I was talking about the different cases and the different caseload that we had, and I made a comment about 0 homicides for this year. I probably should have knocked on some wood because that next day, clearly we had a homicide. What does that look like for our office? Well, I can just give you a quick glimpse of that. It looks like our first initial responding deputies on their way home from boating enforcement, a long day on the water, and getting that call for service that came through 911 and people screaming for help that shots had been fired and the individual was in the process of dying in the midst of the witnesses who were reporting this call for service. The first units that got on scene immediately made the scene clear, started triaging the victim that they identified on the scene, rendering first aid, making it safe for medics to come in, and a shout out to our brave medics who do respond without hesitation when it's safe to do so, and took that individual into their care. He was later pronounced dead at the hospital. Then ensued a lengthy investigation where not only patrol, but narcotics detectives and general investigations spearheaded this investigation and worked it throughout the night with no sleep, authoring warrants, executing those warrants, conducting surveillance to pinpoint the location of our suspect after all the information had been vetted, ultimately to carry on into the next day when we had enough information to say, here's what we're going to ask for from the public. Within putting that information out to the public, within 2 minutes, we had astronomical numbers of calls for service coming into our PSAP, identifying this individual, saying that they'd seen him in the Columbia area. And within minutes, we had that individual apprehended with the partnership of our state parks. One of the state parks officers who was on duty was aware of the information, saw an individual that matched the description, and started to make contact with that individual and was later backed up by some of our deputies that were showing up. I cannot express the level of gratitude that goes out to all of our justice partners here. The fact that we can wrap up a homicide with that expeditiously within 24 hours or even less than 24 hours, that's a huge win for this community. And it takes the whole entire community to get that done. Cooperation of witnesses, individuals who experience traumatic events. I'll leave it at that. It's ongoing still investigation. I don't want to give up too much more, but on we go to court for a prosecution. I feel strong that our general investigators are going to do the community proud and put together the best possible case. An overall general thank you to everybody that wears the uniform, both military, local, in all of our law enforcement capacities, and everybody that supports us in that endeavor because we can't do it alone. That's been weighing heavily on my mind as we approach Independence Day. Everything that goes into what it takes to protecting a country, a state, and a county. And again, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your investment and taking it seriously. I feel it, the staff feels it when it comes to having to put on this uniform and toe the line. So thank you to everybody that supports us in that endeavor. If there was any questions for me, I know I covered it a lot in a short amount of time, not trying to take up too much time, but if there was questions that the board wanted me to touch on for staff report, I'm happy to do that now.
All right.
Okay, thank you,
sir. Any other staff reports? Nope. Morning,
Liz
ma'am.
Peterson, just a couple quick updates on some programs that we have going on at Parks and Rec and in library. Some new exciting things. So a huge thank you to Adventist Health Sonora. They donated like a grant for us to be able to put on a water walking program. This is a program that Blue Zones used to do. And it was free to the community. And then, of course, Blue Zones, their time with us ended. And so the hospital wanted to make sure that this program continued. It's a great low-impact way for folks to still get moving and get exercise. We still also have our AquaFit program, but this water walking one is quite popular. And so we're very thrilled to partner with the hospital to be able to bring that program back. So just want to let you all and the public know that that program is available on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Sonora High Pool. From 5 to 5:30. So huge thank you to that partnership. And then also just wanted to let you know that for the first time, we are also putting on an adult summer reading program. We have quite a thriving children's summer reading program, and we have lots of kids enrolled in that program this year as usual, and our events are wildly popular. But this year we're also doing an adult summer reading program where we are reading Nobel Prize winning literature, and we have like I'm trying to remember the number. It's something like 75-ish between the branches of adults who have enrolled in the program so far. And it's just a really great way to like build community and have, kind of a reading club together. So just wanted to put that out to the board, but then the public to know that those programs are available. We hope folks take advantage of them. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other staff reports? Seeing none, we'll go to board reports. Any board members? Supervisor Holland.
Remind everybody the fair is this weekend on 4th of July. So we're celebrating 250 years. As the sheriff said, greatest country on the planet we have. Might not always get along with each other, but still the best place. No one's trying to break into China to go live there. They only try to break into here. So anyways, go out and enjoy the fair. The weather's going to be great. Buy some animals, help the 4-H clubs out in different groups. The kids are raising them. They raise money for it. It goes into good causes, and it shows our support. And should be a wonderful fair this weekend with the weather being at least 10 to 15 degrees cooler than normal. So knock on wood, it stays that way. So that's all.
Thank you. Any others? Supervisor Campbell.
Yes, so we had our the two rollout gatherings about the Community Wildfire Defense Program. There's another one today in Miwok Village, but the two I participated in on Saturday, one was at the Cedar Ridge Annual Barbecue for the fire company up there. I'm also on the board for the fire company. And very well attended, a lot of great questions, a lot of great participation, and I think working with people on getting defensible space programs through these type of grants is so much easier now than it used to be, because I think people understand the benefit to our community. Like, for example, if you do all of your defensible space in your property looks great, but your neighbors doesn't, that affects you too. And so starting to think about these communities as, fire doesn't care whether it's your property or my property, or whether it's U.S. Forest Service land or Bureau of Land Management. And so the purpose of these community wildfire defense programs is to cover all of our bases. And so, and the other point that I like making to people is that if you're in these project areas, there are three. One is Yankee Hill, one is Cedar Ridge, Comstock Ranch, and the other is Ponderosa Hills. If you're in any of these three areas and you don't take advantage of this program, that money is going to go back to the state. And I don't like giving money back to the state once we get it, because it takes a lot of effort to get that money into our community. So I really encourage people in those communities to participate, to look into the program, and if you have any questions, you can call the county. That's what I did this weekend. One other thing, I also participated in the Fire Institute for Teachers program. It's something that It's called FIT. It's a program that goes on at the Sierra Outdoor School up there in Big Hill. And it's a really great program. It basically takes teachers from large urban school districts and brings them out to the forest and gets them to understand forestry and where our timber comes from and the types of issues that we face in rural communities. And so it's a real eye-opening experience for them. A lot of them just don't understand where wood, where timber, where it comes from. And so getting them to understand that and the balance between our water resources, our natural resources, and the communities that live up here is really important. So I was really grateful to be asked to participate in that, and it's a really good program. So that's about all I'll report on.
All right, Supervisor Kirk.
All right, first meeting back since the election. Yes, I was off on an adventure, spending time with my family. So this is first time in a couple of years, and well needed. Campaign season's nuts. As we all know, I did win, and again, I said this at the Twin Heart Homeowners Association meeting over the weekend. I thank Tim for running. I think it's important for this community to have options to choose from, and I was honored to be chosen and to continue to serve another 4 years. And I will unapologetically continue to advocate for our priorities and to make sure that they are budgeted as such. With that being said, I did attend the TUD Sierra Pines Regional Water groundbreaking ceremony, big deal, $46 million plus project. I'm still in touch with Tangapaw's office. For whatever reason, the governor's office did not approve the $6 million for that expanded water pond. It doesn't mean the fight's not over. We're going to continue to ask, and we'll have more time to ask for the next budget. But I'm going to continue to advocate for that. Also, the Twin Heart Homeowners Association meeting, attended that. And then, of course, we had the Tuolumne Lumberjack Jubilee over the weekend there in township of Tuolumne. So it was a busy weekend. Right when I got back, it was jumping back into it. And then again tonight, Supervisor Campbell touched on it. There is the Wildfire Community Grant meeting tonight about the Word of Life Fellowship Church. I believe it's at 5:30. I'll be attending that as well. So glad to be back and honored to continue to serve. And hello.
All right, welcome back. You have a follow-up?
I want to give a shout out to our roads department. Where's Blossom at? So the community knows we paved. This is an investment from by the entire board. We bought a paving machine, and they paved their first road, Hunts Road, up there that parallels the highway from like Longeway up to Twain Hart. Go drive it. It's nice and very black and very smooth. And so it's not a full road. Well, it's not like they took the whole road out. They can do like up to a 1-inch overlay because of California code. They won't let us do all this stuff. But it's your tax dollars at work. We have the machine. You will see more and more roads getting done because the board has made a dedication to putting money into that. And so that's a good example. If you get a chance to go drive it, it's about a mile and a quarter long. And I think most people will be very pleased with it. So I want to make sure the guy got some credit for it. And you'll start seeing these pop up all over the place. There are little sections that we can get done under the code, not to get in trouble. So thanks.
All right, we'll echo that. I know that the same crew was out working on Jacksonville Road, right? So it looks really great out there. People say, well, we never see anything happening. Well, it's happening. We've got a great crew. We've invested as a board into the machinery and the people, and now it's coming all together. So you're going to see a lot of that. Literally, your tax dollars at work. So we are making headway on that. I do want to kind of something that both Supervisor Kirk and Campbell have brought up. I've launched an online petition to gather signatures. It's statewide. It's on my social media accounts. We'll try to get it out. It's gathering signatures to let whomever the new insurance commissioner know that we are watching, and that when it comes to fire insurance, when it comes to fire threats, that we need to be all working together to lower our insurance, finding ways to be successful, and that if just like all elected officials, if that individual, whomever it might be, the new insurance commissioner, if they're not paying attention, I will put you on notice today that we are watching, and you're only as successful as your actions are. And if we don't like it, then we're going to take the steps to potentially remove you from those offices if you're not doing what you need to do to protect the people in this state. With that being said, I want to say thank you to Annie and her team. I was out at Camp Justice a few weeks ago. I saw a bunch of issues that concern me. One of them was the large collection of shopping carts that have been stolen from Walmart and other places within town and deposited at the Camp Justice. I appreciate that they went out and they got those out of there. I don't have an issue with people taking the shopping carts to and fro, but they need to go back. It is theft, and we want people to understand that you cannot just continue to steal people's shopping carts and drop them off anywhere in the county. It's unacceptable, and it won't be stood for. I do want to thank the sheriff for his actions and his team. I know that was a busy case and everything that goes into it. And as the sheriff put out, there's a lot of information that we don't know. We just hear through social media. We don't know what's going on. I know I asked him, as it was happening, a text, which he rightfully ignored me on because it's an ongoing investigation. So it's important that people understand that, when bad things happen, there are phenomenal people that are making it right and holding people accountable. So a big thank you to them. Last couple things for me. The sheriff kind of hit on it. It's also the 4th of July weekend, right? Not only is this a time for our nation to recognize that it is our 250th anniversary, but, my inner highway patrol officer is going to come out and say, don't drink and drive, don't do stupid stuff. I cleaned that up a little. This is a holiday which is known for separating fingers from hands. Use good judgment. Don't, fireworks are illegal. Don't do that in our community. You remember, this is a high fire season, a high fire danger. So just really good, decision making, which is also a great lead into, Venezuela had a massive earthquake, 50 to 75,000 people dead. Things happen, right? So we as a community need to be prepared. So if the sheriff says it's time to evacuate, it's time to go. If there's a fire and it's time to go, be prepared, right? Steal the Boy Scouts motto, be prepared, be ready to go. We want to avoid any unnecessary loss of life, and that starts with the individual. So your board is here to really make sure that we have all the things in place to be successful. It really starts with you. So just make sure that you have a good grasp of exit routes and things like that. And the board will continue to work on the paved roads so we can get you out safely and things like that. But it's a team effort. And then lastly, only because it's World Cup season, go United States. The game's on Wednesday. So if you follow soccer, great. It's the only time I follow soccer is the World Cup because American soccer drives me nuts. But go. What was that? Oh, go. So go USA, and other than that, that is my only report I have. Okay. Any other board reports? Seeing none, we'll go on and take the consent agenda. So we'll take the consent agenda as approved. There is only one item on this consent agenda, so we will open it up to anyone who has any comment on item number 1 of our consent agenda. Now is your
Mr.
opportunity.
Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself since that's the contract with our firm for the next month.
Okay. Makes sense why we're getting double billed over there. 2 attorneys, I see. All right. Oh, good, he's out. All right. Anybody wish to come up and speak 3 minutes regarding item number 1? So that number 1, well, if you don't have it, so the board has stopped reading the consent calendars, but I'll do it in this case because it's only one item. It's approving the 3rd amendment of retainer agreement with Renee Public Law Group to revise compensation terms for temporary legal services provided to the office of the county council. So that's what that is. And it's listed online as well as on the agenda. But any comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and a vote.
I'll move on. Staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. Passes 5-0-0. All right, so we're going to do a little set my lineup for today. So we're going to take item number 2, which is going to be under county administration. I will be recusing myself because in this piece of area of a discussion, I own a vacant lot, so I will not be participating in this discussion. And then what we're going to do from after that is concluded, as recusing, Supervisor Holland will be running that part of the meeting. And then when we come back, we'll be taking item number 1 of our 9 a.m. appointments. So that'll kind of be the lineup. So with that, I turn it over to Supervisor Holland.
Thank you, Steve. Nicole, you want to read item number 2?
Item number 2, discussion of the county-owned real property subject to a new assessment of the Groveland Community Service District to fund the cost of providing fire suppression services and improvements in the district's boundaries, quote, fire protection and emergency response services assessment district, unquote, and consideration of delegating the county administrator authority to complete and submit assessment ballots.
Thanks. Board questions? Anyone?
Is there a staff presentation on this?
Yeah, there isn't a presentation, but I did want to let the board know that we have multiple parcels within that Groveland Community Service District. We received multiple ballots. The total cost for Tuolumne County, if the assessment does pass, is $5,416. And so what we're asking the board for today is to give delegated authority for myself to fill out the ballots and submit them. We can either vote yes and approve the proposed annual assessment for fire protection and emergency services, or we can vote no and not approve the assessment. So that's the direction we're looking for from the board.
So you're not asking us to approve or disapprove this. You're asking us to delegate that authority to you.
I'm asking you to give me direction on how you would like me to vote and delegate the voting to me.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I was going to do some comments. I did have one question just on so our county properties would be subject to this. I know in other stuff with, public agency to public agency, traditionally there's not kind of the same fees necessarily in that because ultimately it's still billing the public with that. Would we be paying property assessments basically to GCSD? It does seem a little odd.
Yeah, I had the same question, and yes, we would be for many of our parcels, not all of our parcels, which is a little bit weird, but and that total for all those parcels came out to that $5,400.
Okay, it's just interesting. We have a similar issue in Columbia where a lot of the buildings are owned by the state park system. We can pass whatever we would like to. Those buildings, it does not apply to them. I thought the same to GCSD to the county, where they kind of lack the authority to basically put an impact fee on public facilities, but never mind.
So my question is, Roger, how much do we spend on? We maintain a fire truck up there already, right? So we're spending $2 million something a year providing fire protection for the community.
Yes,
as
that's
a
correct.
whole
Yes, that's correct.
in that area. Okay, and so this would be another additional tax that basically, if we're paying it, all the citizens of the rest of the counties would be being taxed in a way that would be going to that, correct? Does
That's
it come
correct.
out of the general fund dollars?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You guys got any other questions?
No,
I agree with Supervisor Brandon's question. That is something that's odd to me, and I would be curious to know under what authority we're being taxed by another agency. Yeah. I mean, for example, we can't charge the Bureau of Land Management property tax, even though their property resides within the boundary of the county. I don't know, seems analogous to me, but.
Do we pay them just out of we're nice guys, or is there actually a statute that says we have to?
I can ask our staff if you want to pass on this item. We can get an answer back to you in a little bit in the meeting. I don't know the answer to that question. There are different districts and different arrangements and different types of assessments that sometimes local governments are liable for in their land and some that are not. I don't know the specific answer to that one.
Because I think I asked Donnie, I think I saw him in here somewhere, our auditor, and I think he's made comment to me that we also pay school bonds and some other stuff, which, to Jaron and Ryan's point, in the hierarchy of things, they would be below the county government, but again, we can't just tax the state when we feel like it, otherwise
Well,
the
the
budget would
state
be
is
very
a
nice.
different issue, that, particularly for county versus state, because we're a subdivision of the state. And the state is, when we're operating as the state, we have the same sovereign immunity, but the state has the sovereign immunity.
Are we doing comments, Chair?
Well, let's do public comment real fast. Public, you guys got any comment on? Come up and you got 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is John Armstrong. I serve as the president of the Board of Directors of GCSD. Before serving on the district board, I spent a career in firefighting. It gave me a deep appreciation for planning and long-term investment required to maintain a dependable emergency response system. I appreciate the opportunity to briefly speak today. My purpose is not to advocate for any particular action regarding the assessment ballots, but to share information about the partnership that Tuolumne County, CAL FIRE, and Groveland Community Services District have built together over the past several years. The county's decision to co-locate a county engine and personnel at the GCSD fire station has created a true regional emergency response system. Through automatic and mutual aid, our firefighters respond together every day. When the county resources are unavailable or additional assistance is needed, GCSD engine routinely responds outside the district boundaries into the surrounding county areas. Likewise, the county resources provide critical assistance within the district whenever needed. Together provide a level of service and operational resilience that neither agency could achieve alone. The partnership protects not only district residents, but the county residents, businesses, resorts, and the Highway 120 corridor serving Yosemite National Park. It supports one of the county's most important visitor destinations and helps protect the community and businesses and contributes significantly to the local economy. The assessment currently before property owners was established through an independent 15-year financial analyst. It was designed to provide sustainable funding, planning, or maintaining CAL FIRE contracts staffing. It's transitioning to three-person engine staffing. Replace engines essential for equipment as they reach their service life, and ensuring long-term reliability of the district's fire department. As a career firefighter, I learned that emergency response systems cannot be built overnight, sustained through short-term solutions. They require dependable staffing, reliable equipment, long-range planning, and strong partnerships between agencies. The partnership between Tuolumne County, CAL FIRE, and the Groveland Community Services District has become a model of regional cooperation. We sincerely appreciate the county's willingness to work alongside us as we remain.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Steve Hayward. I live in Jamestown. I would encourage the board to table this measure until the supervisors have the supporting materials to make a valid decision on this. It's surprising to me you didn't have that already, and that there's no staff report on this. I don't see how you can legitimately vote when there's legitimate concerns being raised without that supporting material. Thank you.
Good morning, Rachel with the Groveland Community Services District. We actually were not aware that this item was going to be on the agenda until I was notified by our general manager, Pete Campa. And so yesterday I did email all of you guys the public presentation that we put out months ago, and as well as the engineer's report completed by SCI. So you guys all should have a copy of that in your email as of yesterday. I'm here only to answer any questions that you guys might have regarding this benefit assessment. I do apologize. I've been on a medical leave for the last 3 months, so I might not have all of the answers. But I'm here if you have any questions pertaining to this item.
And,
Thank you.
and Mr. Chairman, I would just note that this is for setting the amounts of the assessment. We definitely, as a county, have the right to vote those parcels. It doesn't determine whether or not we pay them, or not, if you want to wait for a legal opinion from the county council's office. Generally speaking, 218 assessments, if we have a special benefit, a county would still pay those. I'm just not certain on this individual one.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Good morning, gentlemen, Chair and members of the board. My name is Janice Kwiatkowski, and I serve as the Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Groveland Community Services District. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Like our board president, I'm not here to advocate for any particular action regarding the assessment ballots. Instead, I would like to briefly speak about the role of local government and the process that has brought us here. Our board has spent the past several years listening to our community and evaluating how to maintain a dependable local fire department in the face of rising costs and aging equipment. Our responsibility was not to decide whether property owners should approve an assessment. Our responsibility was to determine what it would take to sustain the fire department over the long term and to present that information openly and honestly. To do that, the district commissioned an independent 15-year financial analysis that identified the funding necessary to maintain staffing, replace fire engines and equipment as they reach the end of their service lives, and to continue reliable fire protection into the future. The proposed assessment reflects that long-term financial plan. Under Prop 218, however, the final decision does not belong to the district. It belongs to the affected property owners. Our responsibility has been to provide transparent information, answer questions, and conduct a fair public process so the community can determine the level of fire protection it wishes to support. That is local government at its best. The elected board develops a long-term plan, presents it to the community, and then the community decides. Whatever the outcome, the Groveland Community Service District will respect the decision of the property owners and remain committed to working with Tuolumne County, CAL FIRE, and our community to provide the best fire protection possible with the resources available. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Board, thank you very much for your time. My name is Tom Atkin. I'm a resident of Tuolumne County for about the last 57 years, and I live in Groveland. I have no idea why I stayed. Everybody's trying to figure out why we stay in California, why we stay in Tuolumne County, and why we stay in Groveland. Well, I'm going to give you some options here with a cautionary tale today. None of you that are going to be making this decision live inside the Groveland Community Service District. I do. Your weighted ballot has 12 times the power to make a decision on this assessment as mine, as a property owner in Groveland Community Services District. I believe we were only given 2 options, as what was explained to us. I believe you have a third option. I think your third option is you can decide to recluse yourselves from this. All of you, as my supervisor did, Griefer, because he has property inside. I think you not vote on this and not weigh your heavy ballot that's 12 times more powerful than mine to make a decision in an area you don't live. If I'm not mistaken, 218 is available to everybody to be able to do this. And I'd like to remind you that if you establish precedents by developing an investment in a private fire department that is supposed to, under only 218, only respond to areas inside Groveland Community Services District, that if you open this door and you partially fund a private fire department, there are a couple other communities that might be interested in doing the same thing. Strawberry, Pinecrest, Sierra Village, Sugar Pine, Miwok, Cedar Ridge, Soulsbyville, Twain Harte, Tuolumne City, Jamestown, and Columbia, just to name a few. So this assessment for me cost me about $1.30 a day. That's an investment that I would decide to make for my property and my family in Groveland. You don't live there. I'm asking you to not weigh your ballot in favor of or against. Just recluse yourself. Don't vote. Otherwise, you're going to ask people to be doing the same thing out of these other communities, and you're going to be funding private fire departments. You already fund an engine in Groveland. Thank you for that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? My name is Kay Crow. I am a Groveland resident. Please vote no on the county properties for this tax assessment, and here is why. General Manager Pete Campa has stated at GCSD meetings that the district has enough funds to continue the current level of fire protection for 1.5 to 2 years. He has also stated if this assessment fails, there is enough time to do another assessment. This assessment is like a forever tax, along with a possible 5% annual increase. In the past, we have had assessments that have had a sunset clause, and those assessments have passed. This current assessment does not have that. The engineer's report is not clear on the methodology being used. Many people at meetings have asked how they've come to this. A single family equivalent is being charged $475 a year on top of their property tax. Recently, after the ballots were sent out and many residents have protested, GCSD formed a community fire committee. If this assessment fails, that committee could explore other options. We, the residents and taxpayers, would like to have that opportunity. I, along with others, have asked for the fire committee in the past, but our request fell on deaf ears. We have many smart, dedicated residents in Groveland. Please allow us the chance to find a better way. Nobody likes a forever tax. Give us the chance to find a better way to improve our current situation. By voting no, you let the residents and voters of Groveland decide their future, since it is their finances that are being affected. Please vote no, or don't vote at all. Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak. My name is Lorna Larson. You gentlemen have gotten emails from me many times. The methodology for this does not cover mutual aid. The methodology for the financing for this is only for within the districts, within district boundaries. They are not supposed to be covering any time this fire engine goes off on a mutual aid, goes off to help with a car accident, any kind of medical aid outside of the district. This is only for district boundaries only. You cannot use this fire engine, expense it for any kind of mutual aid. So the methodology for how this was going to be applied to the property owners, it was never explained of all the calls for the year, how many were broke out for just the district. They used the total amount of calls for the year. They did not break out how many medical calls went directly just to the district or fire calls or any kind of service to the district. They used the total amount, which made it look like their engine was more active than it really is, because they cannot charge mutual aid to that engine. They only can charge what they do within the district boundaries. So please look at that. It's a large amount of money for the people that are going to have to pay. They already pay taxes for the U.S. Forest Service. They pay for the state. They pay for the county. This is another tax that just goes directly to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Bring it back. Comments, Jaron?
Thank you. And as per usual with this, and I appreciate it, we begin with questions and we do public comment, then we're able to open up the comments. My recommendation would be, this is a decision that I think should be left to GCSD. I don't think we should be voting yes or no on this or weighing it. It's not our ballot measure. To my understanding, everybody should cast a ballot there and vote. We're in a bit of a different boat. And so if we do not choose to basically cast a vote into that, I don't think it counts either way, and then it allows it just to be the main residence. If it passes, there's a county and a landowner there. If eligible, then we pay it, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. So that would be my recommendation.
I think by not voting, it does count one way or the other, right, County Council?
Well, it doesn't count, but in a 218, it's a majority protest vote. So they have to get a majority that votes no. So essentially what happens is if you don't get a majority of the voters in the district voting no, the assessment passes.
So by not voting, you're essentially voting yes, because it's a backwards vote in a way. Well, in a way.
I think it could be framed that way, but I don't think we should take an action where we are changing what is going to basically happen through a 218 process. In a sense that is, I guess, a yes vote by not protesting, but I also don't think it's really us expressing support. It's simply choosing to allow the process to happen.
Well, I definitely don't think we should definitely not vote yes and then behind the scenes not pay the bill, because that's even worse, and I think the public should realize our vote should not influence their vote at all. We're talking about our 9 parcels that the county just happens to own there. It has nothing to do with, but unfortunately it does way more because we're up here having this large public conversation about it. So, Brian?
I'm just a little confused with this. There's not enough information, I feel, for us to really make a clear decision about this because, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't recall this board ever voting on a measure within a special district before. For example, Twain Harte Community Services District. The county owns property within their sphere. They've had measures come up, and I don't remember ever getting a ballot. Not irrespective of whether we vote yes or no, it seems strange that a public agency like the county would be participating in a vote from a special district, which is a subset of a larger government agency. I don't ever recall that an issue like that ever coming to the board before. We participate in joint powers agreements where we do have a vote. There are some capacities where we vote as a board, but never when it comes to a special agency that's not directly connected to county government.
Yeah, unfortunately, Supervisor, I can't speak to what's gone on in the past, but in general, if a county government has a special benefit that's applied to its property, the burden is kind of on the county to prove that they didn't get a special benefit to their property for the assessment, and then that would be exempt under a 218 type process. But you do have the right to vote those shares in a landowner type assessment action, or vote your property ballots. So you get ballots. I don't know what's happened in the past with respect to those. There's no obligation on the board to vote one way or the other, or to vote at all.
Yeah, again, I don't feel that we have enough information on this because, for example, if let's say we don't pay our bill, GCSD can't place a lien on county property.
That is correct.
So there's no mechanism. In fact, I'm not even clear what the mechanism is that we would use to pay.
That
kind of
if it's a valid enforceable assessment, they could bring a claim for that amount. They wouldn't be able to foreclose on the property, but they could bring a claim for that amount.
Yeah. This seems odd.
I believe in the past, the information I have from the office is that the county has not challenged the special benefit to the county property in this particular district. We've been paying the ones that we have been paying annually in the past, but they've never challenged the special benefit to the county property. That is it's one of the anomalies of Prop 218 districts, and which types of assessments public entities are still liable for and which they aren't.
Well, and this is just me playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with this, but one could make the argument that, so we're paying a $5,000, I forget how much it was. $5,400 assessment to GCSD to support fire services. That's $5,400 that could be applied to the county fire engine in that same area.
It is a decision on the board's part to do that.
Which is, so we're funding a private agency over a county agency. So
A private agency that has formed as a district that has the right to bring a 218.
Yeah, special district. Sorry. Those are just my comments.
My suggestion is let's not weigh in on this right now. Let the election take place, and the next week bring it back. And if it passes, we pay our bill. We vote to pay our bill. That would be my suggestion.
I mean, I guess I see a little bit different. I understand where they're coming from. I mean, we're struggling with budget. We're going to have that here in a few minutes coming up, and maybe our decision will be different after we get done with that presentation. But we are spending over $2 million a year for fire protection up there as a whole. We're now being asked to spend another $5,400, which is directly funded by all the citizens of Tuolumne County to go in there because it comes out of the general fund. So I think that's something we got to think about. I think when you guys made the point about, or someone made the point about, well, what keeps all the other rest of the districts from doing this? And we are paying for fire protection. Excuse me. So I think we could make that argument that we qualify, that we already expend plenty of money for that. We're not getting extra service. But again, I don't think it's fair that if we vote yes, it shows something and then we don't actually pay the bill. I think that's even worse. So I don't know. I mean, by tabling it means we just voted yes.
I'm not hearing, there's 4 of us. I'm hearing 2 no's, so it's not going to, again, my thought is I don't want to have the appearance of influencing that election, but I do think that if it passes, we'll absolutely pay our bill. That's where I'm kind of coming from. I could see the headline news saying that we support them advocating for that when that's not my intent. My intent is if I have to pay a bill, I think the county should pay a bill, but that's not how it's going to be received by the public.
And to clarify on the agenda language, as I read it, first is discussion, second is consideration of delegating authority to submit the ballot. If we do not delegate authority, we are also basically not turning in a ballot.
Correct.
I know we're in a trolley problem in that conversation, right, and the morality of choice. All to say is I think we move on. I would recommend we table this indefinitely unless staff has adequate direction, but if we don't take an affirmative action to delegate that authority, then by default we don't submit anything.
Well, I would recommend that we don't do it indefinitely, though, because if it does pass and we do have parcels that we need to pay for, we'll have to make that decision as a board.
Yeah, but that's a separate, indefinitely just
the payment is a separate issue.
Okay.
The payment is a completely separate issue from the setting of the fee amount, which is what the 218 assessment is for.
Table indefinitely means to put it in the filing bin, generally.
Or you could just vote no.
Yeah.
No to delegating authority, yeah. That would be.
Okay. So I'll motion that we table this indefinitely.
I got a second?
Well.
Ryan, you got a counter motion?
No, I'm just interested in getting more information about it.
When is the vote? Can anybody answer?
The 8th.
July 8th?
You have to have the ballots in by the 8th.
So is there questions that would, because we have a July 7th meeting, correct? Do you think there'd be more information, Ryan, that would help by then in your decision making?
Well, whether or not this is proper, I'm not clear on that.
Is it okay to boil it down to those? What I heard was 3 folks that said we should not participate in so many words. I certainly didn't hear a majority, which would require all but one of us to move forward. So, I mean, are we putting an item on the next agenda to discuss and go get information to clarify something in a way that it doesn't matter because there's not the votes to do it regardless?
Well, that's one final, like if Supervisor Campbell thinks that there's something that would help sway his decision making, I don't mind. We just schedule it for the 7th.
Key in on me. You all have the option to present an argument or make a motion, and if you do, I'll consider it.
All right, let's just get on with this. I'll make a motion. We vote no on this just because everyone else in the county is having to pay that bill. That's where the money's coming from. So that'd be my motion that we vote no on this for our parcels only. No other influence on it.
Sorry, can you clarify vote no? Is it vote no on delegating authority, or is it vote no as in
Give Roger
voting to
authority.
protest?
Give Roger authority to check the no box on the ballot.
So you're actually trying to direct the CAO to actually vote no on the assessment.
We got to make a motion to do something, otherwise we'll be sitting here staring at each other.
So it would be yes to give Roger authority to vote, and then the vote would be no.
Correct.
Okay.
Second?
But that's what I'm saying. It's not going anywhere. There's not enough votes for it. So I think it dies.
So can I make a motion, then we'll use the word, we can pull the item?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have the votes and we can't make a motion, then the item just dies on the vine. I mean, essentially that's us not voting in a way then, so I guess it votes in a way too, but it's a backwards vote.
I just want to clarify, if it passes, then it's still coming back to the board as far as if we're going to pay that bill, correct, on those land parcels? A decision will have to come back to
Yeah,
the
we'll
board.
definitely come back to the board.
Okay. So then I'll vote to pull it, and it will come back when it comes back, if it does.
So the second?
Yep.
There we go.
So that's
The motion is to pull the item.
Okay.
yeah. And you seconded, or was that a second to your
I motioned,
original?
Supervisor Kirk seconded.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All in favor say no. No. Or against, sorry. No. Okay, carries. We're going to pull the item. Wherever Steve's at, come on back.
All right. Now I know what it's like to be in the lobby. Not the first meeting I've been thrown out of, so it'll be all right. All right, after a vicious game of Rochambeau, we're gonna change our lineup here a little bit. We're gonna have items number 3 and 4 go next. We're gonna do them combined. So if I could get the Madam Clerk to read items number 3 and 4.
Item number 3, consideration of adopting Resolution 68-26, approving Amendment 1 to the 2025-26 Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Tuolumne and the Tuolumne County Deputy Sheriff's Association. Item number 4, consideration of adopting Resolution 69-26, approving Amendment 1 to the 2025-26 Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Tuolumne and the County of Tuolumne Management Association.
All right, we're combining these because a lot of the material is going to be redundant, so we wish to be cognizant of people's times and your time, so I know you've got a lot on your plate today, so take it away, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Board. Karen McGettigan, Human Resources and Risk Management. These items are combined because they are a part of the Sheriff's reorganization, and I know he is here this morning to talk about these items. So we are in active negotiations with all of our bargaining units right now, and the public and this board can expect to see fully rewritten MOUs coming back within hopefully the next month, fingers crossed. Prior to us entering into those negotiations, the sheriff had already begun the process for his own reorganization. It's a really important change to address not just recruitment, but more intentionally, more specifically retention of his staff. It expands the educational incentive eligibility. It creates a new incentive program for the adult custody personnel, and it does allow some classifications to combine their educational and professional certificate incentives, which is obviously really important in reducing risk by getting these people education and also incentivizing them to stay, which we need to do not only for the workforce and for the community, but also to address our unfunded liability. So the sheriff is here today. I'm sure he's excited to share the details of these items, but essentially they have already gone through all of the meet and confer, and moving forward on these amendments today allows us to move forward with those changes without waiting for the fully renegotiated MOU.
All right, thank you. Sheriff?
Morning, Board. Thank you, Madam Director, for that intro. Happy to answer any questions. As you all know, I've had many conversations with merging, acquiring different aspects of labor over the course of the last year. It's been an ongoing effort. I would like to just start out with gratitude for all of the staff that have been participating in the attached labor that comes with this compensation. We are under the clear understanding that in tight budgetary times, it requires us to get creative with how we can address compensation, especially when we talk about individuals taking on additional labor. This is nothing more than just a conduit for us to explore creative options. By taking on that additional labor for that staff, we are creating an opportunity for them to earn more money through these incentives over the course of time. We do have data to show that this incentive program has been instrumental in protecting what we know as the monumental investments that this board has made in compensation for deputy sheriffs by implementing recruitment and retention efforts through the incentive programs. We are simply expanding that so we can trade that labor associated with all of the mergers, the acquisitions, and also workforce reduction, which is important to our budget moving forward into perpetuity. It is important to note that later on in the budget presentation, you will see, or the numbers should say, or reflect elimination of 7 positions to cover the ongoing costs, not including the reduction of liability and exposure that comes with reducing human beings that we are employing. So therefore, there shouldn't be any questions about how or what we would be paying for this incentive program. There are other things that are subject to negotiations that I don't think would be appropriate to have the conversation right now that speak to our continuous effort for workforce reduction based on data-driven analysis, which is what we've done right now. But to highlight that, it takes time, it takes energy, and it takes a lot of patience for the staff who have been executing these duties for the last, I'd say, 6-7 months that we've been putting this into the works, and to the labor representatives for their trust and confidence in me to have this meet and confer and work through all the provisions that are outlined in these amendments that you're seeing. I would ask that this speaks directly to the adjustments that you will see in the budget and are very much so necessary to create sustainability in the overhead that we are absorbing through that workforce reduction and the offices that have come to join the sheriff's office in the last year. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those. Our human resources and county administrative offices have both been instrumental, and their professionalism is greatly appreciated in this partnership to get this done for the people.
All right, well, thank you. I'll bring it to the board for questions. Seeing none?
I have one, I guess.
Yes.
Can you just break it down simply for people? Because I did reach out, and we had some texting, some conversations. Because a lot of people, they're going to look at it and say, we're paying the sheriff's department more money, we're paying more positions more money, but really what you are doing is you're saying those positions are hard to fill. More people are going to take on additional work, and they're going to be incentivized through pay, correct?
That is exactly
what's happening. And that creates, if I were to hire somebody, it's going to be $100,000 a year plus PERS, plus medical, plus all these things. Or you can pay somebody a little bit more money and have a cost savings in perpetuity correct? Can you just make that simple for the people listening that
That is
understand?
correct. And I think another component of that is that traditionally and historically, we have struggled to maintain our competitive nature and wage with the neighboring counties. And so here is an opportunity for us to not just take money that might be seen as a cost savings and put it directly right away day one into pockets, but we're creating an opportunity for people to make more money by, one, taking on a little bit more labor, but also more consistent with our vision is making people better thinkers. This is requiring them to get professional certificates. It's incentivizing them to continue their education outside of law enforcement so we can build more well-rounded deputy sheriffs and support staff for the people that choose to take on that responsibility. And it is specifically tied to classifications that are very difficult to fill because they aren't compensated in a way that would create sustainability for providing for a family. So looking at the trade-off behind trying to refill those positions every 6 to 8 months after we invest $30,000 to $40,000 in doing background investigations, investing in training and other things that get these people off probation and into the operating forces, undoubtedly we will see a significant savings in that arena as a whole.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Open it up to public comment. Morning, Ms. Schmidt.
Morning. I'm just wondering if the increase in money going to the sheriff, is this for OES labor? I don't know. You can't answer it, but just a question.
Any other public comment? Sheriff, did you wish to address that question? I tried to catch you before you sat down.
Your pleasure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's leg day. It's leg day anyway. Keep going.
This will be a combination of consolidated labor, not just with OES. It will affect the Office of Emergency Services, specifically in the finance world, calls for service, but also animal control and the classifications that we are reducing that require significant investment in our records division, and that's all aspects of our records, which touches dispatch as well, to include our professional staff in the main office. So as a whole, creating that overhead to support all of those divisions, it'll affect in a good way.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Comment. I think that's awesome what they're trying to do here. It's hard to keep people nowadays, and we need sheriffs.
All right. Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion. Sir?
Great. I know we have a couple of these. We're also in the budget. I think as the sheriff mentioned, this has been a collaboration over, where'd he go?
He's in.
Oh, there he is. Collaboration over several years. And so I'm happy you've seen the partnership we have with the DSA and our bargaining unit with the sheriff and the sheriff's department and all the law enforcement agencies as well. Just reflecting on the earlier comment too, it is, people actually out there that are able to go make the arrest, but there is a lot that goes into the background of getting that data, the partnerships, making sure that the equipment works, that the training is up to the level we expect. And so I'm just very proud of that. So I'm in support and ready to move forward.
All right. We'll see if there's any other board comment. Seeing none, would you like to make a motion?
I will move to approve on item 3 of staff recommendation.
And I will second that. So no further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Passes 5-0-0. All right. All right, so that concludes all of those items. The next thing we'll do is go ahead and we'll go into our appointments. Do we need time to set up? Nope. All right, so we'll go ahead and take.
I could take a 5-minute break.
You want to take a bio break? All right, let's do that. 3 and 4 together.
Chair, just as a point there, just to make sure it's all above board, I thought we were only considering item 3. You mentioned 3 and 4. I know my motion was specific to item 3. I think it would be just a good idea that we also make a motion on item 4 just to make sure that that is also covered. That's fine.
Move to approve item 4, resolution 69-26.
I'll second.
Okay, well,
Sorry, we'll just vote it again and be done.
So Campbell initiated the second.
Sharon?
okay. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains, 0. So 5-0-0. So items number 3 and number 4 were approved unanimously. All right, now we'll take a little bio break. It is currently 10:19. How about we come back at 10:30? 10 minutes? 10:30. All right, we'll come back at 10:30, everyone. Thank you. All right, it's currently 10:31. We'll go ahead and restart the meeting here, or continue the meeting. At this point, the board will be acting as the Tuolumne Power Public Agency. We will be addressing item number 1 of our 9 a.m. appointment. Madam Clerk, please read the item.
9 a.m. 1, as the Tuolumne Public Power Agency, consideration of approving Tuolumne Public Power Agency budget for fiscal year 2026-27 and setting the new rate at 11.47 cents per kilowatt hour.
Good morning, Board. Mark Fisher, your Tuolumne Public Power Agency Coordinator. I'm going to keep this real short and sweet. It is not super complicated. TPPA is set to experience a very lean year in comparison to other years, mostly due to a dramatic decrease in expenditures related to PG&E transmission and distribution. The rate, as was stated, is going to be 11.47 cents per kilowatt hour. For comparison's sake, the rate at the beginning of last fiscal year was 16.1 cents per kilowatt hour. And then, as we noticed some of this reduced spending, we reduced it to 10 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm going to direct your attention to the budget itself. I'm going to go through some of the changes and just call out and make sure certain things are very clear. When we look at revenue, the line for AB 1890 charges reads 2.5% of rate-based revenue. That is just the sum of member invoice charges in AB 1890 charges. So that sum, 2.5% of that is $111,832. It's just a call out, so we know how much of it is going to go to the restricted AB 1890 fund. Down in expenses, the outside attorney line has been reduced by about $40,000. That is a result of the WDT4 negotiations coming to an end, and that is the thing that has actually led to such a dramatic decrease in PG&E related expenses. Our outside attorney is actually set to retire after this is concluded, and some of the conversations that I've had with him are that we need to start thinking about looking for a successor for those because in 2029, when this comes up again, if they want to renegotiate this in the form of a WDT5, as opposed to just reapproving the existing rate structure, we're going to need somebody that's going to be able to look at that. So it's part of what I'm going to be focusing on in the coming years to make sure that we're ready in case that comes up. In the energy grants line, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that the increase of $100,000, that is being moved from the energy loans line. As we eliminated the energy loans in the energy conservation policy revision. All of the additional expenses that relate to that are the base amount, which is $137,500, and then carryover rebudgeting from the 2 large energy efficiency grants for GCSD and Twainhart CSD that were incomplete by the end of this fiscal year. As I said, the biggest noteworthy change here is just that we're going to have to spend way, way less on transmission and distribution. And then down in the bottom, we have the transfer out to the general fund. We're reducing that simply because I'm going to be spending a little bit less time with TPPA than I have in the past. It probably will not reduce back down to historical lows because of increased interest in the energy conservation program, but I'm going to be spending a little bit more time supporting the county administrator's office with general analyst work. At the very bottom, you can see that the net cost is $293,500, and that it will be covered by use of fund balance. Specifically, that is the AB 1890 fund balance, and you can see that that is the sum of the large energy efficiency grant for 2020. That's wrong. It should be 27. The large energy efficiency grant for fiscal year 27, and the 2 carryover grants from the previous fiscal year. That is all I have for you.
All right. Bring it to the board for questions. We'll start at Supervisor Kirk.
No, I sent him my question yesterday and he answered it. So
okay. Supervisor Campbell. Brandon.
Mark, thank you. I wanted to ask, since we don't have too many TIPA items coming forward, one of the issues over previous years was the Tuolumne side of basically our power amount that was available for the many agencies that are members of TIPA. How does that look? Has that still been looking like we are effectively maxed out? There was concerns that we may run out of distributable power and have to discuss which agencies could be a part of it, and maybe some would have to exit. I mean, it was a pretty significant conversation before we were able to change some of the staffing.
So one of the benefits that came from spending a significant amount of time with TPPA just by itself is I was able to dive into some of those policy-related things. And what I learned was we've already been over that cap for many, many, many years. And there's a stipulation in the contract that means that if either of the counties go over, if the other county has any excess, then we just get to use that until their consumption rises to the level where they actually need it. So we've been over that for several years, and now that I've learned that, it's not nearly as much of a concern. If it rose to the level where we were consuming all of the power, we would simply just go into a custom product power arrangement with WAPA. We would buy power from somewhere else, not relating to the New Maloney's Dam, and it would probably be a little bit more expensive, but I don't anticipate that happening for maybe ever, because there's not a significant amount of expansion. There's not a lot of new customers coming in. I don't think CPPA has any new customers or any significant expansion in their facilities, so I don't think it's as much of a concern as we initially thought.
Okay. And this may come up a little later, more in budget. One of the previous conversations was the idea of TIPA potentially being able to look at energy projects in the area that would help kind of support that. Part of that was because we were afraid of hitting that cap. Part of that is, continuing to have cheap electricity if we wanted to even expand that. Is there any work, you mentioned your time at TIPA is being reduced to focus a little more onto basically CAO's office and other work. Is there still work within TIPA beyond the change from grants to loans at looking at project development or trying to bring in, say, DOE dollars or any of that? That was at least one of my intents, was TIPA would be working in the energy sphere to help try to bring in GRIP dollars or to get a power project or a storage project or a resiliency project.
So to that, I would simply say that if the TPPA board wanted to pursue any kind of specialty energy project, then that would fall to me and I would just take it on and it would be absorbed into my other responsibilities.
Okay.
But I'm not going to be proactively looking for grants or coming up with projects of my own. I'm mostly going to be focused on the CAO stuff.
Okay, copy that. Thank you.
I will retain all of the activities that I have already absorbed from other departments, so I'm going to be doing all the billing and invoices, payment reconciliation, reporting to state and federal agencies, and those kinds of things. So my work in TPPA will be a little bit higher, but none of that extra stuff, unless your board directs it.
Great, thank you.
Supervisor Holling?
I'm glad to see the bill's down from, I think it was 18 cents before, right? Back when we started a year-ish ago.
17.87.
All right, close enough. So that's good. That's saving the schools money. It's saving us money. It's saving lots of people, TUD money. I think the tribes as well, right? So
just Black Oak, but yeah.
Just Black Oak. So saving us all money. So that's good. Thanks.
All right. I know I saw some eyeballs roll a moment ago when we started throwing out acronyms. Could you tell the group what WAPA stood for?
Yes, that's the Western Area Power Association. That is the federal entity that we actually purchase our power from. I did skip over the whole history and establishment. I could just do that. I mean, it's not super complicated.
No, I mean,
it sounds really easy.
Yeah, we're good. All right. And CPPA is obviously Calaveras.
CPPA? Yeah, sorry.
Calaveras.
Yeah, Calaveras
That's right.
Public Power Agency.
Right, we all speak the acronym language, right? The people that we serve, sometimes they don't know. So I just like to, and one that Supervisor Brandon threw out was GRIP dollars. Your turn.
Grid Resilience Improvement Program. We had a joint application as DOE gives out a lot of money. If we're not in a position to ask for it, we don't get it. Working with PG&E, we applied for a $100 million grant to improve a Central Valley to Tuolumne line. Unfortunately, that was, to all indications, ended by the Department of Governmental Efficiency, and so that application is dead. But GRIP is an ongoing program often for disaster resilience or avoiding disaster. when it comes to critical infrastructure investments, and specifically the grid. There's another one that's called the BRIC program that's often with the same stuff.
All right. And then I think it's
resilience in communities or something like that.
So, like I said, we all speak these languages, but we just want to make sure that people go, well, what does that stand for? What does that mean? Because it's unusual for, for this board to act as another board, and sometimes people don't understand. So I just want to make sure when it comes down to their dollars, Supervisor Holland said it is a reduction from 17.8, right? That was 0.2 cents, right? So, all right. All right. Any other questions or comments, or any other questions for Mr. Fisher? Seeing none, I'll open it up to public comment. Don't charge the desk at once. All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
With that, now that we've covered GRIP, BRIC, SIPA, TIPA, WAPA.
You had another one on there, Wii dollars. I thought that was the video game. But
with that, I will make the motion to move on staff recommendation as the Tuolumne Public Power Agency and approve the budget for the following fiscal year.
I'll second.
Seeing no further comments, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstains. Passes 5-0-0. Thank you, sir. All right, our item number 2, do we need time to set up for this? All right. Now for the part you all are excited about, budget. Mr. Cole, come on up. I do. I was getting there. I was setting the tee. He's walking up. It's all right. All right. Madam Clerk, please read item number 2.
9AM number 2, consideration of approving the fiscal year 2025-2026 year-end budget adjustments. 4/5 vote approval required.
See, I told you. I really wish we had the Jeopardy music on. All right, Mr. Cole, take it away.
All right, good morning, Board. I'm Sean Cole with the County Administrator's Office. Sorry, I'm just going to get myself situated here. Okay, so we're going to start first with the fiscal year 2025-26 year-end budget. So at the end of each fiscal year, about a month or two before, we actually do a final estimate for the budget for that year. And the goal is to estimate what expenses and income are going to be for that year, and to try to get us as close as possible to what the actual fund balance is going to be for the end of each fund for that year, because that fund balance becomes the beginning fund balance for the following fiscal year, which is important in the budget development. And so, first, before we get into all the funds, I just wanted to remind the board and us as well of the decision that was made last year on August 5th when the sheriff and fire special revenue funds were established. The board voted at the 2-hour and 33-minute mark that the ending fund balance for both of those funds would come back to the general fund at the end of the year unless the department heads wanted to advocate otherwise. If so, then a discussion would happen with the board. So that was what the board approved back then. And I'll explain more how that actually appears on the sheets as we go through here. So first we start with the governmental funds and with the general fund. So I first wanted to state that this sheet that we're using here over the summer, Roger and I want to try to make this easier to understand and use, because there's been a lot of confusion, even just looking at the sheet. And this is actually close to what the schedules are that we send to the state each year when we report on our finances. But we want to make it kind of easier to understand, especially because fund balance now is a really big topic with the new board priorities about how fund balance is used, how it cannot be used. But basically you have on the 2 left columns, you have the 2 sources of revenue. You have the beginning fund balance, which comes in to the fund that year, and then you have the revenues for that year. And those equal the expenses. That's going to be for recommended budget. But yeah, so say that. But here we have the beginning fund balance that we came into the general fund of $6.3 million. Then we're estimating right now, best guess, revenues of $96.4 million and then expenses of $97.4, which drops our fund balance down to $5.3 million. And then it's with the sheriff fund, they did not start with a fund balance, revenues of 37.6, expenses of 35.7, and ending fund balance of about 1.9 million. The fire fund ending balance of 145,000, roads 324,000, and then you can see the rest as well, like HHSA public health 1.3 million, behavioral health 963,000, social services 2.3 million. And then road construction capital, 617,000. County capital, about 4 million. Capital housing, 4.1 million. And then our enterprise funds, Columbia Airport, about 100,000. Pine Mountain Lake Airport, 17,000. Ambulance, 3.8 million. And then solid waste, 1.85 million. And then for our internal service funds, liability, estimated ending fund balance about 2.3 million, unemployment 177,000, telecommunications 521,000, workers' comp close to 15 million, purchasing 134,000, employee group insurance 17,000, leave liability 1.8 million, post-retirement 3.6, and then IT services 2.4 million. So we do have some year-end budget adjustments. If you look at the bottom three, actually the second and third one relate to the Lightning Complex fire. So that first one, where it says Lightning Complex Fire 2025, the second one there, that was the response cost center that was set up right when the fire happened. So there's expenses that happen right away. So we set up a cost center for those charges to go into. And so looking at it year end, there was still $237,000 that needed to be funded. Of expenses that were in that cost center. And then the second one is the recovery lightning fire. This is especially the debris removal and disposal. There was still $418,000 that needed to be funded. Also in human resources, we're putting in $60,000 for outside attorney to help with especially the bargaining unit negotiations. And then, so we're removing, we're adding expenses to those, and then we're reducing, taking that out of contingencies, a total of $715,941. And so our staff recommendation is to approve the year-end budget adjustments that you saw, and also outlined in attachment A that's attached to the agenda.
All right, thank you. We'll bring it to the board for discussion. Supervisor Kirk?
Just one question on the Lightning Fire Complex.
I'm sorry? Yes, yeah, back to the board for questions? Okay.
On the Lightning Fire Complex, there's a 418 and then there's a 237.
Mm-hmm.
Is the 418 a combination or are those two separate? So for a total of more like 650 or?
Yeah, those are separate, so they combine for, $650,000 or so dollars, that we further need to spend on the fire.
So that 600, is that all coming out of contingencies?
Yeah.
And is that going to be reimbursed eventually?
Roger,
is that our share?
It's our share.
That's our
It's
share?
not going to be reimbursed.
Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Supervisor Campbell?
Somebody else can go first if they want, otherwise I'll go.
Supervisor Brandon? Supervisor Holland?
Thanks, Sean. A couple things. It'd be nice if we changed a couple of these terms, like capital housing.
Mm-hmm.
It says we have $4 million. It's not actually for housing, which
Yeah.
is deceiving in the name of it. So the public knows it has to do with the HHSA and the opioid money, stuff like that. So maybe just something that makes a little more sense on there than say
Yeah.
capital housing.
Yeah, we've had, Roger and Donnie and I have had a talk on that, so we'll come up with something, right? Yeah, to help with that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, the rest of it makes sense. Thanks.
Right. I have no questions, so Supervisor Campbell?
Keep turning on my mic when I want it off, and I keep turning it off when I want it on. All right. Okay. So Majority of the board voted to reduce the fire department budget by 2.3 million. Where is that reflected?
So that's going to be,
budget
that's for
adjustments.
fiscal year 26-27.
Right.
Yeah. So that'll
So
be in
that-
the next.
Okay, so
budget,
we're this just carries this up to.
yeah. So this is just for the
48.
current fiscal year ending today.
Okay.
Adjustments that need to be made.
All right. That's my question.
Okay. All right, thank you. Nothing for Roger. I'm not getting any looks. All right, open it up to public comment. Does anybody wish to come up and talk about this item? It's a tough room today. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Call for comments or a vote.
I'll move on staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Brandon, a second by Supervisor Holland. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains. Passes 5-0-0. Thank you. All right, so that'll take us to our next item. Madam Clerk, please read item number, our 9:30 appointment.
9:30 a.m. Consideration of approving the fiscal year 2026-2027 recommended budget, approving all personnel changes as outlined in the staff memo and associated attachments, and authorizing the county administrator to approve acquisition of fixed assets and capital projects prior to the final budget hearing as detailed in attachments A, B, and C.
All right, we'll bring it back to Mr. Cole, and we do have an updated attachment A.
Yeah,
Was that?
we do. I'll actually kick this one off.
Okay.
The update on the attachment A is just the salary schedules that were
So
added.
nothing changes, you actually added a line.
That's correct. We just added the salary schedules to the back.
Okay, and was that presented or put out there for
Yes.
the public?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
I'll actually kick this one off before Sean goes into the presentation. I would just like to start by thanking the staff that have been involved in helping put together the recommended budget. I know Sean Cole has been busy every single day working with departments and working with staff just to put together the budget. We've been very active with pulling Donnie away and keeping him in there to look at the numbers and to go through numbers and to question everything that's going on. So we really appreciate the time that Donnie's taken to assist with this, and everybody else who has been involved in the recommended budget. I also like to emphasize, because I have a lot of questions regarding this, that the recommended budget is really based on the best information that's available at this time. A lot of educated estimates on the revenue and expenditures. We still don't have our fund balance, so a lot of year-end projections, which is why our adopted budget in September is much more important, because we will have the year-end closeout, we will have solid numbers for revenue, and we will know where we stand more accurately come adopted budget. And so our plan for adopted budget, just so the board is fully aware and the public is aware, we're going to have multiple meetings that are going to lead up to the adopted budget that will be here in this boardroom, the public can participate in, to actually have input into those true numbers that we have and what we're going to actually budget for this next fiscal year. It is very important that I look at this budget as being the budget from July to September 30th. What we're really focusing on is what we're doing for the entire fiscal year, and that'll come in September. There are a few things that I did want to point out. We are still using fund balance to balance the budget. I know that the direction is to live within our means, and we are working towards that. We believe it's a multi-year plan. It's just not feasible with the current budget to be able to do that. We are focusing on the priorities of public safety, fire, and roads. You will see an additional $725,000 going towards roads. I did want to call out Hunts Road. I travel that road frequently, and Supervisor Holland stole my thunder because I was really excited about that. I've actually driven it more since it's been paved than what I usually typically do, and I can actually take my Civic on that road now and not have to worry about my tires. It's amazing. I love it. And I will advocate for a striping machine. I hear that's something that we need, so I encourage the board to help support that effort. And I say that because I think the striping on Hunts Road was not done because the contractor was not available yet. But I do want to thank our roads department for that, and I look forward to future projects. The next road I guess I'm traveling is going to be in your district, Supervisor Griefer, it sounds like. So I'm super excited about the roads getting done, and it is a priority for me too. So with this budget, you're going to see an increase in roads, but I anticipate that we'll look at further funding in the future, maybe adopt it, and in the future years for roads as we put together a plan to fund roads more fully in the future. So with that, I'll pass it on to Shaw to go through the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roger. All right, so we're going to start first off with the governmental funds and with the general fund. So we're estimating, if you remember from the year end, we had an estimated ending fund balance of the general fund about $5.3 million. And so as we said, according to the policy, we've added the sheriff fund balance of 1.9 and the fire fund balance of 145,000 to that 5.3. So it's the starting fund balance for general fund now is $7.3 million. And then you add that to the revenues line to the right, and that equals the expenses on the third column there. So you bring in that fund balance from last year, 93 million in additional revenues, and that equals expenses of 101.2 million. And the ending fund balance for all the governmental funds has to be zero, so revenues and expenses need to match. But we also want to include another column on the right about our contingencies. Some funds have contingencies, and sometimes they're very important to point those out because this is the money that is available for unexpected expenses or other things that we're considering. So the contingencies amount is actually part of the expense column. So it's not an additional expense. It's part of that. The 1.97 million in there is part of the 101.2 million for the expenses. So this is currently, that 1.9 is currently what we have for recommended budget. The sheriff, their revenue expenses, 39.85 million for 26-27. Fire, 10.85 million. And then we see roads, about 14.8 million in expenses. They have contingencies of 135,000. We have a couple of the smaller funds that you can see there. Public health, they have contingencies 752,000. Behavioral health, they have contingencies of 920,000. Behavioral health housing, 91,635. Social services, 1.6 million. And then these ones do not have contingencies, but when I get into the pie chart later, I'll go into more of why the funds went up and down. But our grants fund, they have 36.8 million this year. PLHA, 561,000. Road construction capital, 4.3 million, and expenses, 4.9 million total. County capital, almost 7 million, and then capital housing, 5.25 million. Then enterprise fund, you can see there Columbia Airport and then also Groveland Yosemite Airport. So we have changed the name in the new budget because the name did change from Pine Mountain Lake. And Columbia Airport has 915,000 expenses. Groveland Yosemite, 143,000. Ambulance, 14.5 million, and they have contingencies of 1.7 million. Solid waste, 3.7 million in expenses, and then contingencies of about 1.5 million. And then we get to our internal service funds. You can see with liability, we started off with 2.3 million with an ending fund balance of 843,000. So getting that closer to what the board target is for that fund. Unemployment is not much activity there, small amounts, so pretty much stays the same there, 133,000 at the end. Telecommunications, the numbers stay the same in terms of the fund balance, 419,000 in revenues and expenses. Workers' comp started off close to 15 million in estimated beginning fund balance, and we're also getting that closer to the board target by reducing that to $13 million at the end, and that also saves departments money in terms of what they're charged for that fund. Purchasing, 222,000 in the expenses, bringing that fund balance up to 405,000. Employee group insurance, it's about 16 million for revenue expenses. That's really what holds our all the insurance, life insurance and health insurance is charged to there, and then the money coming in to pay for that comes into that fund as well. It holds all of that. Leave liability, $101,450,000. And so the fund estimated beginning and the ending, it stays the same. Post-retirement, that drops somewhat, about $350,000. This year we have a new internal service fund called the GIS fund. So currently, in the current fiscal year, there's a surveyor and GIS fund, cost center, and the general fund that's combined. We're breaking that up into two cost centers. So there's going to be a survey cost center that stays in the general fund, and then the GIS cost center is going to move into its own fund, and this is going to hold just the GIS costs, as well as our two GIS workers will be in this fund. And that just helps to further, Roger was the one instrumental in creating this, but it just helps to kind of concentrate the funds and better fund it throughout the county, including with non-general fund departments. And then our IT services fund started with a beginning fund balance of $2.4 million, and that ends at $1.6 million. So in terms of comparing this budget with the previous budget, the adopted fiscal year 25-26, our total budget grew about $7.5 million, from $332 million to almost $340 million. The governmental funds pretty much made up that increase. And the enterprise fund, you see, went down 1.3, and the internal service funds went up about $1 million. So the focus really was on the governmental funds. So in terms of where the growth happened, where the decrease happened, on the right you see the budget we're talking about, the recommended budget for 26-27, and then we're comparing that on the left to the current budget that we're in, the 25-26 adopted budget. And so as you can see, the general fund was almost exactly the same as it was for 27 as for 26, went down 100,000 or so. A lot of things make up the general fund, but so I'll get into the other in terms of why it went up, why it went down. One notable thing was the OES moved out of the general fund into the sheriff fund, so that was a decrease in the general fund of about $750,000 for that cost center, and that's one of the reasons why you see the sheriff go up on the pie chart here. So for roads, there was an increase in $1 million. Fire went down $400,000 from last year. So one of the questions is, with the cuts that were recently made, why did it only go down $400,000? Well, there's a lot of other line items in the budget, but some of the ones that the changes that we saw was in previous years we had been budgeting the CAL FIRE contract at 82%. We were estimating the actuals would come in at 82% of the not to exceed number. And this year we changed that to 84%, so we raised that. There's also a 5% CPI increase. Fire was getting a salary and benefit reimbursement that's now going to go away of about $100,000. Their liability charge went up $145,000. They also saw a pretty significant drop in revenue, I think of around $250,000. I know Nathan has those numbers, can speak into that more detail of what happened within the fund. But combining all of that and a few other things, that budget went down $400,000. Public health stayed about the same. Behavioral health went up about $2 million. Social services went up $500,000. The biggest change in the governmental funds really was on the grants fund, so they went up $6.3 million, and that was primarily the Master Stewardship Agreement program. That went up around $5 million. So that was the big change there. And of course, this is all paid for through grants, so whatever expenses they have, the grant is coming in to match that. The sheriff fund went up $2.4 million from 37.5 to 39.9. Some of the big reasons, one of them I already mentioned, the OES was transferred into the sheriff's department, which added about $750,000 there. Also, their PERS fix is what we call this. This is our annual payment to CalPERS to help pay down our unfunded liability. This is a charge that CalPERS tells us this is what you need to pay. So it's not something we can negotiate on or anything like that. This year, in total, it went up $1.4 million to $14 million was our total payment countywide. The Sheriff's Department paid about $700,000. They saw an increase of about $750,000 in their costs. So that's one of the things is even if a department or us as a county are trying to lower costs, if those mandated costs come in higher, whether it's PERS fix, whether it's liability, that's something that is a challenge for us that we have to try to figure out how to work around or just deal with. But PERS fix now being $14 million a year, that is something that has significantly impacted us over the last 5 or 6 years. That has crowded out a lot of other things that we would have liked to do in the county. So they saw an impact there. Also, their health insurance, that's the cafeteria contributions that the county is giving employees. That went up $400,000, and this was result of just the cafeteria contribution increase that happened in the fall. That's now part of the ongoing budget, as they're now total year numbers in the budget. Road capital went down. It's about $4.5 million. About $5 million. County capital went down about 1.3. Capital housing was around the same. Enterprise funds went down 1.3, and then internal service funds went up about $1 million. All right, so this is something that we're going to try to make as clear as possible in terms of our beginning fund balance. So just to repeat what we've talked about before, that the current board policy is that beginning fund balance is not used to balance ongoing operations. Roger mentioned this, that this is something we're trying to get to. So, but the number 2 in the budget priorities for the board is that fund balance be spent, the general fund balance be spent on one-time things like paying down debt, additional one-time expenditures, capital, things like that. So we wanted to show where that $7.3 million has been spent in the budget. So the first 3, the orange ones, these are according to board policy. So board policy says contingencies needs to be at least 1% of the general fund, sheriff fund, fire fund. So that's why that $1.2 million there, that's what according to your board policy needs to be in there. It needs to be at least that amount. So we have $1.2 million going towards that. Also, your board policy states that general reserves should be going up by at least $500,000 every year. So we've included that in the budget as well. And then also, this is year 2 of, I believe, 4 years of paying down the loan, the internal loan for the Yaney Courthouse elevator right over there. So that's $518,000 or so each year. So that's in the budget. So that takes us down to $5.13 million. That then we have the ones in the blue category, which these are the more discretionary things that you guys have more freedom to decide what you want to spend this on. So in this budget, we have included $1.5 million transfer out from the general fund to county capital for moving out of lease spaces. And this is something that's been a high priority for your board as well as for CAO Roger Root. And so we put $1.5 million into that. Roger, do you want to speak more on this item here?
Obviously the board has directed us to move out of leased spaces. We are really focused on both the historic courthouse next door and the Washington Street Courthouse as county-owned spaces that we want to move into. That courthouse has some improvements that have to happen in order to move into there. I don't have the intimate details, but Lawson probably can provide some more. But the roof needs some repairs. We've had some water damage. As I had mentioned previously, some of the HVAC system has been removed because of the elevator. That needs to be repaired. So there's portions of the building that we would need to take care of before we can even start moving people in there. I would like to start moving people in there sooner than later and do that shell of the building, get that up, and not focus so much on putting up walls or building offices, but utilizing the space the way it is today. So I've got quite a few plans for that. And then Washington Street Courthouse is the same thing. We've got some plans for moving departments into there. And my end goal is to move those departments that are in rented spaces out of those rented spaces. Obviously, these projects are expensive, and most of them have to align with the public contract code.
And the next one is the extra transfer out the roads that Roger mentioned. So each year there's a required amount that we need to transfer out the roads, what we call our maintenance of effort or MOE. So in order for us to get the state's SB1 gas tax, the county has to contribute money, so that's about $775,000 each year. So we have now added another $725,000. So it's a total $1.5 million that we're transferring out the roads this year. And then what's left in contingencies, because we put in 1.2, what's left is $771,000. So that adds up to the total amount of $1.9 million. And then the amount that is remaining, that $2.1 million, is what's being used for ongoing operations. That is essentially what the sheriff and fire fund balance. We were working towards, on the general fund side, we pretty much got there, adding in those fund balance. It does take us 2.1, but it shows us that there is still money, there is still overall fund balance being used to balance ongoing costs. All right, this is another slide that has a lot of info on it. Hopefully it's easier to see than from right here. And there's a lot of numbers here, but the most important ones really, first off, this talks about our general revenues growth. And so 95% of our general revenues is made up of the top 5 rows. So it's our property tax, sales tax, our transient occupancy tax, which is what's on hotels, Airbnbs, things that visitors visit. Our A87, which is our, it's an internal transfer kind of reimbursement from non-general fund departments to the general fund to pay for services general fund provides. And then also PILT, which is money that we as a county get from Congress. It's called the payment in lieu of taxes. Because so much of our land is federal land that can't be taxed, the federal government actually gives us money to help us with that fact. And so that's what, so 95% are those 5, and then there's another 21 categories or so, which is part of the other, just to let you guys know where our general revenues come from. So on the very bottom, you just see the main thing, which is how much are we growing each year. And so from fiscal year 22 to 25, we grew almost exactly the same each year at 7%. But this year, the current year budget, we forecasted 1.58%, and for fiscal year 27 budget, we're forecasting 2.6% growth. So it's much reduced from where it was the previous 4 years. So this chart just shows you where the growth was coming from. That's the main thing to take away from it. One of the big drivers of those years was the growth in A87, and this came especially from HHSA and roads that was transferred into the general fund to help pay for just an increase in general fund services. So, we grew from 1.4 million in fiscal year 23, 1.5 in 24, and then 25 we grew by 2.3 million. And we grew a total of 4.4 million, and about half of that was 87. So now that 87 is no longer growing, it's actually declining. That is a significant source of money coming into the general fund that no longer is there. But besides that, with property tax, you see in fiscal year 24 was 2 million, and in the budget now we are forecasting 1.1 million. So there are some other things too that have been a factor. Sales tax has been flat. We think online sales is a big part of that. As well as, because most of the time it's the warehouses in the Central Valley, whatever, those counties, districts that would get that tax. Transient occupancy tax has, so in fiscal year 22 it went up a lot because that's when the measure was passed that increased the TOT rate from 10 to 12%. And then I think there was also a resort that opened up that year near Yosemite. But since then we've been around, as resorts open up, that's really what helps us. So under Canvas, which is like a giant tent complex near Yosemite, opened up in April. So we're forecasting somewhat of a bump in 27 versus 26. But as Roger said, one of the main things this summer we're going to look at is for fiscal year 26, where are the actuals coming in? Is TOT going to come in better than expected? Where's property tax going to come in? Is sales tax going to come in better expected? So if they do come in, $500,000 better than expected, then we might revisit an adopted time to revise the numbers for 27 up. But those are one of the key actuals that we really need is from our revenue side to see where things are trending in that direction. And then also on our other category at the bottom, one of the things we've noticed is that there are certain sources of revenue, like Lake Tolek, for instance. We were getting about $250,000 a year from that was going into the general fund. And then Lake Toluca had some issues. And then also we've been directed now that money goes into a trust fund. So things like that we've been losing over the years, and there really have not been any new sources of revenue coming on stream. So just kind of like we're losing things, but nothing really coming on to replace that. Okay, the final part is just the position requests. So we have, I think, 7 pages, so it is quite a bit. And most of these are reclassifications of existing positions or reorganizations, things like that, but there are quite a few. So, and this is also in the attachment A. So in the CAO's office, the administrative analyst position that's grant funded is going to change to non-grant funded. The auditor controller is deleting their property tax accountant position, and they recently had a property tax specialist position approved that is replacing that. Accounting counsel, they are deleting a deputy county counsel position, adding an executive legal assistant position. Human resources, they're reclassing an HR technician to an HHSA HR analyst, and this is being paid for by, reimbursed by the HHSA departments. Facilities, they're adding a facility maintenance supervisor, deleting a facility maintenance worker, adding a lead housekeeping worker and deleting a housekeeping worker. In IT, we're freezing 2 positions, an IT technician and a network analyst. In survey, we are deleting a surveyor, land surveyor position and adding an admin tech position in its place. We are also, once again, refreezing the counter surveyor position. We have not been able to fill this. So we're freezing this again, and then we're adding more money into professional services to help pay for the surveying costs. As I mentioned before, we have the new GIS fund, so we're moving the GIS positions into the GIS fund from survey. In the DA department, they are adding an investigative assistant and then deleting a legal assistant. In conflict counsel, they have a current relief position, office assistant position that is going to become permanent part-time position. Probation, they are adding a supervising probation officer. This is 75% funded by AB 109 and 25% by opioid funding. And then air pollution, they're freezing an air pollution control specialist position. In library, we are adding a county librarian position and deleting a librarian position. We're reclassing a library assistant to a senior library assistant. And then also we're adding a part-time library assistant 1 and 2 and deleting a senior library assistant part-time as well. And then in recreation, we are deleting the former position of the director of library and recreation services. And we are adding, which was in that cost center, and we're adding a Parks and Recreation manager, just specific to that cost center. Moving on to Public Works, we're reclassing an agency fiscal officer to a Public Works fiscal officer. We're deleting a construction support services tech and adding a lead construction support services tech. In fleet, deleting an equipment tech position, adding a fleet supervisor and deleting a fleet manager. Solid waste, adding a solid waste manager and deleting the solid waste director. HHSA for public health, freezing an admin tech and deleting the health program technician that's grant funded. And mid-year they added a regular health program tech, and now they're deleting the grant funded one. Social services is deleting 4 positions, a legal assistant, social services supervisor 2, social worker 3, social worker 4, and freezing the agency program manager, eligibility screener, integrated caseworker 3, senior staff services analyst, and a social worker 1, 2. Into the Sheriff's Department and OES, there has been an OES assistant director, so that is positions being deleted, and we're adding a Sheriff's OES coordinator position. And the Sheriff Corner Cost Center, we're reclassing a senior accountant to a Sheriff's fiscal officer, reclassing 4 Sheriff's clerk positions to Sheriff's technician positions, adding a senior Sheriff's technician, deleting the Sheriff's record supervisor, reclassing 3 community service officers 1, 2 positions to just a regular community service officer position. And then in dispatch, which is Sheriff's Communications, we're reclassing the communications supervisor to the Sheriff's Communications coordinator. County Jail, deleting 5 custody support technicians. We're reclassing 2 fiscal technicians to sheriff's technicians, adding a jail deputy sheriff corporal, deleting 2 jail deputy sheriffs, adding 1 sheriff's program manager, animal control, adding a animal control officer 1-2, deleting supervisor animal control officer, reclassing 3 animal control officer 1-2 seniors to an animal control officer 1-2 without the senior label there, reclassing a registered vet tech to a supervising vet tech, and then reclassing an office assistant to animal control office clerk. Clerk. In terms of in terms of FTE changes, so a lot of changes, but very few overall FTE changes. So general fund went down 3.5, and that was primarily OES moving out from the general fund to the sheriff's fund. Roads went down 1, public health the same, behavioral health the same, social services overall 2, and then sheriff going down 1 overall. So our overall positions, if you go back to adopted 25, we were at 749.6. A year later, we dropped down to 719, and now we're at 711.5. So our staff recommendation is to approve the fiscal year 2026-2027 recommended budget, approve all personnel changes as outlined in attachment A, and authorize the CEO to approve acquisition of fixed assets and capital projects prior to the final budget hearing as detailed in attachments B and C. And you can find an interactive report of the budget on that link right there. Lots of things you can do there. We're also planning to put kind of some more instructions on the website. You can go through every single department line item, compare them to different years. And also, as the year goes on, we're going to be updating. There's going to be an actual section for 27 where you can actually see what the actuals are for that year for each line item to see what's being spent. And then also what the current budget is, that as it changes with budget transfers, things like that. And then also you can find PDF documents of the budget on the county website at that link there.
All right, he's taking a drink. That must mean he's done.
Yeah. I did want to add a couple things regarding
Sir, please.
Personnel positions. One of the emphasis of this board was to look at our executive confidential group. So our HR director put together kind of a breakdown from where we were at in fiscal year 24-25 and where we're at today. At Adopted, we had 65 personnel in the executive confidential group. During the mid-year layoffs that we did in that year, we eliminated 9 positions in the executive confidential. In our recommended for 25-26, we had 53 at recommended budget positions, and today for this recommended budget we have 45.5 in our executive confidential group. It was one of the areas where we were given direction to really look at who belongs in that group and who doesn't. So we've made significant changes over the last year and a half with the personnel in the executive confidential group.
Is that all, sir? All right. Is there any staff that wanted to comment? Kind of suspected as such.
Thank you, Chair. Dave Vasquez, Sheriff. Outstanding work, Sean. It's a great job, accurate depiction there. I did just note a couple of things and wanted to add just a little bit of context for the board. We do recognize that PERS fixed has looked like a significant increase, $700,000. OES also another $700,000. It's caused the number to grow. I just want this board to know and the community to know that I'm mindful of those numbers, and like I'm mindful of that number, I'm also mindful of the $1.9 million that is going to transfer from the Sheriff's Office back into the general fund for your discretion to utilize that. I just want to highlight that that's intentional. Those things are done as a collaborative effort of work with the CAO's office, the auditor controller, that as I'm managing that sheriff's fund throughout the year and choosing how we're leveraging special department revenue and other things that are restricted money to free up those general fund dollars, it is to address issues like this. And so we recognize that, and I think that's important to just highlight. It is also a key component to why we are focused on a workforce reduction program. specifically to address what we can reasonably with the PERS contribution, because we do understand that that's an issue. I will highlight just one thing that I saw is that for the sheriff's office, it showed 1 reduction in FTE. It should be 7 total based on the forms here. So I think that's a good thing to highlight, that you'll have further reductions in that workforce for that last slide. And I hadn't seen that slide, otherwise I'd have emailed you or something. Other than that, looked accurate to me, and I just wanted to give some context to how we are doing our part, and I'm doing my part as the sheriff to work with this board to address those issues accordingly. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Could I add something to the sheriff's comments? One of the things that we're doing as we move forward is we've created, we're going to be working with the auditor's office to create an account for all the tribal funds that come in for the sheriff's office, so we can focus on making sure that the allocated funds that the tribe has contributed is identified, and the use of those funds are tracked and identified also. We're also doing the same thing for fire. If you recall, this board approved setting aside $250,000 every year for fire for equipment replacement. So we've created a line item in the, which is already done, created a line item in the contingencies that will maintain that $250,000 for the next 4 years, so we get to $1 million, so that we will have that money for fire engine replacements in the future.
Sheriff? I just had one thing that I forgot to comment. Also, in creating this budget, traditionally we've used a 5% growth formula associated with our department. We self-reduced that to about 3.5%, and we're still able to meet our obligations working in collaboration with the county administrator's office and the auditor controller. So again, it could have been about $2 million higher, but because of our strategic budgeting practices and our whole team, and my Ashley and my accountant and my safety administrators who are all working around the clock to make sure we keep our finger on the pulse, we were able to get it done, not utilizing the 5% growth factor, but more like 3.5%. CAO?
I also, there wasn't a no, but I think the sheriff's program manager is partially paid for out of the 8109.
The program manager is completely paid for by the Community Corrections Partnership. I didn't see, was that not on there? Oh, okay, great. Well, there you go. Good news all around. Thank you.
All right, any other staff comments? Supporting evidence? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for questions. I will remind the board that I'm obligated to call for lunch at 12:30, so in theory, if we could wrap this up in an hour, I'd be happy. In theory. So, who wants to go first? Supervisor Campbell?
12:30. Oh, yeah, I can go first.
Okay.
So
well, I saw your reach, so I didn't know if you were.
Yeah,
okay.
No, it's fine. So my last question on the last item was about the majority of this board decided that it was important enough based on a number of criteria to cut $2.3 million from fire, ostensibly eliminating an engine and laying off 6 employees. And I asked where that was reflected in the previous presentation. You said it would be in this presentation, but I still don't see it reflected here. You did speak to some of the line items where I guess that savings went, but could you explain a little more about that, and how come the staffing reductions aren't reflected in your FTE changes?
I'll address the CAL FIRE stuff. And our assistant chief is here if he has wants to add anything. The 6 FTEs were not county employees; they were CAL FIRE employees, so they're not reflected in the FTE count that we have for county employees. As far as the contract, we mentioned that we have historically budgeted around 82%. This year we budgeted at 84%, so that took a little bit of that savings away. And Sean mentioned several other areas. They lost $100,000 in revenue that they were doing CUPA inspections that now is being done through environmental health. There was a reduction of the reimbursement for the loss of revenue. This last year, it was reduced by approximately close to a little over 300,000, and so we're budgeting a loss in that revenue. We can't predict what's going to happen. Keep our fingers crossed we don't have any fires in California, and that will come in at 0. There was a natural in the contract. There's a 5% increase annually in that contract. So that was accounted for as part of that. They did see an increase in their mandated costs, both for computers and the GIS services. We did add $30,000 into their budget to do building improvements. That did live in, well, didn't really live. It lived in facilities, but we put it into to their budget for basic maintenance that they have to have. We did see an increase in their insurance. This is the insurance that we charge through our mandated costs. That would have lived in general fund's budget anyways, so we just are charging directly to the fire fund now. Some of the other big things, the increase in the co-location agreements, both at Groveland Community Service District and the college, which equates to about $30,000. We have the cadet program that they've started, which is about $36,000, and then we've also increased the budget for our volunteer residents. And our chief can speak to any of those changes and what that looks like as far as staffing and what that looks like as far as the programs that he's running. But those are the major things that took up that savings and added to the fire fund.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was getting at. Is it sounds so, and thank you for that. It sounds like a lot of that, or almost all that, 2.3 million went to those types of line item issues. So either a combination of reductions of revenues coming into the fire fund or these additional incremental cost increases. So we're not really getting anything significant out of that savings. I mean, I guess that's
well, actually, I think if we didn't do the reduction, we would be looking at an additional 2.1 or 2.3 million that we'd have to come out of the budget somewhere or out of contingencies to continue operations.
And then how much do we have in contingencies with what you've proposed?
1.9 million.
That was 2.13.
The 2.13 is what we are using out of the fund balance for continuing operations.
Right. So. But beginning fund balance before all those other expenses is up to like 7.3.
That's correct, with the 1.9 million from the sheriff and the 145,000 from fire fund.
Okay, so we do have the money. We're just choosing to spend it on these things instead of fire is what I'm trying to illustrate there. So, and then the other question was, we have a contract with Visit Tuolumne. Where is that reflected here?
The contract is in the budget. It's not on any of the slides, but it is built into the budget.
Okay. How much is that?
It's in the Economic Development and Promotion Cost Center. And pulling up the number right now. So for this year, and this is 16% of our projected TOT. So this year it's $1.665 million is the amount allocated to Visit Tuolumne.
Okay. You said 1.665?
Yeah.
And so where would that be on this pie chart here?
So that's in the general fund. So that's part of general fund expenses.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, okay. So glad to see that we're setting aside the $725 for roads. That's something I've been pushing for a long time, and we're finally in a place where we're getting there. And I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So what share of that 125 is going to staffing versus equipment versus projects? Is that yet to be determined? Or is there some kind of commitment?
I think it's more yet to be determined. We haven't committed to anything. And our public works director is here. If you have specific questions, she can answer.
I would just be curious because 125 transfer out to roads is very vague, non-specific, and I think when people see that, they're going to want to see transfer out to roads for projects that money is going to go specifically into improving roads and that type of thing, and not something else. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Yeah, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Kirk. I was
still kind of collecting my thoughts, but I'll jump in with just a couple questions. Campbell kind of hit it a little bit on the head as far as the road funding. It looks like we are doubling it, which is great. And at some point, I always remind Blossom, I really wanted to go to road materials. I know there'll be specific road projects, but road materials, specifically equipment to do more in-house road material projects. And then also, if I'm correct, I believe we had 2 frozen road crew workers that we can now fill. So I guess my question is, this would be for you, Sean, on the roads, it says FTE changes 48, was back in 2025, adopted was 51, and now we're back down to 50. But if we're going to hire those 2, why are they not maybe reflected in the FTE? Are we aware? Yeah, I'll let.
If they're frozen, they stay allocated. They're just not funded in the budget. So that's, yeah. So they would have remained that whole time in there, yeah.
So that answers it then?
They weren't actually frozen. They were unfunded. So
okay.
now with that 725, we'll be able to fund those 2 positions in addition to buying materials for our equipment, for our paving machine and our chip seal machine, and then some of it may be set aside for larger projects. It's going to vary each year.
Sure. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's exciting. We're sitting here doing budget. We just got 2 more road crew workers, people. It's a good day. I just want to be really clear on 887 because when I look at this general revenues growth, you look at the bottom, 725, 739, 716, things are pretty much even kill, and then we drop down to 1.58, 2.64. But that's not like an economic factor. That's simply the game change with 887. So maybe next, as we go through this budget into the next meetings, we could kind of pull out 887 because I just kind of want to know how the economy is doing with our budget. I know it's still a general revenue conversation, but it's like one of those things that you don't expect and plan for, and then you get hit. But kind of, I just think there should maybe be 2 slides, or I'm asking if we could kind of have a slide like this and then maybe pull one out where it's kind of more of an economic indicator. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And we do plan on doing that. I don't really consider 887 as revenue.
It's not, but it is going to hurt us because that money's going to come.
That's correct.
And it's the same thing with the TOT conversation. Like, I'm stoked that we are doing an extra 700,000, but you know, Roger knows I really want to jump into that TOT allocation. I get that it's going to take a minute, but this is almost like the exact same thing that's happening with the TOT allocation. Is it's coming out and it's hitting the general fund. Let me see if I have any more questions. I got those answered last night. Thank you, Roger. On the sheriff, this is just really quick. I know I brought to light yesterday that you had only been cut 1 position, but like you said today, it was 7. I just want to be clear for the community. We are not cutting a patrol deputy. They're all important, but there's something different about a patrol versus staff behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight that the board's not cutting anything. It's actually has been my recommendation based on the analysis that we've had over the last almost year, 8 months, that these positions are, we can absorb this labor with the workforce reduction program, with the incentives that you improved earlier on to create those opportunities for folks to earn more, is allowing us to implement the changes that you see now without impacting the general fund.
Correct, but to be clear, there's not a deputy coming off the street.
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to make.
Yep.
I know that. I just want to be clear to the public.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Supervisor Brandon.
Great, thank you, and Sean and Roger and department heads as well. Being able to kind of sit down ahead of this and go through a lot of the questions on the budget. So I wanted to ask our current budget policy on the internal service fund. We talked about that for workman's comp. It's set at 70%. We would report last year, the year before, said it was around 90%. I see that this is going from about a $3 million contribution to about a $1.7 million contribution. But we still have, so one, we're still over 70% substantially. 2, I assume that money is basically invested as traditionally with, the tax collectors investment, LA, whatever it is. I'm wondering, are Are we planning to, my concern on this is we are reducing it, that's great, but we should consider this a one-time revenue because it's dropping that account. At some point it will hit 70% and then those payments will go back up for departments. So in that 1.25 that effectively is reduced in the revenues for the workers' comp fund, are we putting that to one-time projects? Are we preparing departments that once that hits 70%, that's going to return?
So I remember with Roger, we discussed, that's why we didn't drop it to 500,000 or lower, is because we didn't want a big jump up when eventually it does get to that 70% confidence level, which is around $11 million or so. So yeah, the idea is once it gets closer, then we'll go back up to like 1.5 million total charge and things like that. I don't know if that totally answers your question in terms of, so what we're doing is just charging the departments less right now to allow that to go down.
And do we know how much of that fund balance for the workman's comp fund is currently, I don't want to use the word earmarked, but used as an internal loan or otherwise committed? Is it all simply available and basically invested in that with the tax collector's office?
Yeah, I think maybe the auditor's office would know that more.
And for example, the elevator would be an internal borrowing example where we borrow from a fund, we pay back over 5 years. This is not, this, but for the public's benefit, we pay that fund back. I'm wondering, encumbered, that's what I was looking at. How much of the 13 million would be encumbered?
Yeah, I do know that we get about, in interest income, we get about $500,000 on that money that's in the bank. So a lot of that is just being there, gaining interest, which does help a lot. It helps the fund. But in terms of any of that that's earmarked for anything else, I don't know of any.
That's good. I wanted to ask too, we kind of covered this very briefly in our meeting, but there's a section in the budget that says grants. To me, that's very confusing. There's been a lot of discussions about wanting to separate out what is a general funded program or revenue versus, people see a $340 million budget, they assume that's all just the local taxes we get and then make all the decisions on. With that said, we've got, let's say, behavioral health, we have capital housing, and then we have another section that's grants. Well, I would say every section on that pie chart has grants within that budget. I'm not quite understanding what grants would be, because MSA lives within, is that MSA dollars or?
It's predominantly MSA, but one of our initiatives over the last year and a half has been trying to consolidate grants where we can. So we have brought some of the grants into there, and like you alluded to, we have grants all over the place. And so the consolidation is a longer-term plan. We couldn't consolidate all the grants. We may not be able to consolidate all the grants in fully, but we will continue to consolidate where we can when we have the grant opportunity. So
because grant is more like a tactic, like the general fund or social services being kind of categories, or that grants is like what could be grants, it could be pass through, it could be general fund.
I would describe it. We put 4 cost centers into this new grants fund that we started last year because they are entirely grant funded, the entire cost center. Where if you look at sheriff, probation, they have grants in them, but they have a lot of other things in them. Right. So like MSA, that's completely grant funded. There's 4 total that are in there. We have master stewardship agreement. We have the FEMA home hardening grant and the USDA CWDG grant. So those are forest mitigation or fire mitigation ones. And then we have the REAP 2.0 more grants, which the Community Development Department manages. So those were completely grants funded ones. And so we decided to take them out of the general fund because it was obscuring what was going on in the general fund, especially the trends and projections when, that thing shoots up a lot.
Like we got the Columbia Resiliency Center grant that we had applied for, and that was a $15 million project. Suddenly, our whole budget changes, even though really nothing changed except we got one. Anyway, so the question on that too was earlier in the presentation mentioned that 750 or 770,000 or so of the increase at the sheriff's office there is reflected as OES. OES, correct me if I'm wrong, barring the former director position, was largely grant funded. Most of the positions that were in there were grants coming in that were paying for that staff time, right? Yep. And so that 750 moving in this, the question I wanted to get to is that 750, which includes most of those grants plus that director cost and the sheriff's line item, or is that 750 like the total cost, but from the general fund?
Yeah, so I can give you the specifics on that. So their cost center, let's see here. Yeah, I'm just looking the way because it's totally, the revenue coming in is matching the expenses, the transfer in from the general fund. But I think what we call the net county cost, I think was $270,000. So that's what the difference that was not funded by the other revenue coming in.
Sheriff?
Yeah, the number associated with the one general fund position was in fact the assistant director position. And I think Sean is correct. It was somewhere between 215 and 260 or something like that.
Okay.
Out of the general fund.
I appreciate that. And that would be something where it's confusing because 70% of that is grant, and yet it's reflected in not grants. It's reflected in the sheriff's budget, even though it's not just an allocation, it's a transfer of grant money. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so when we do like last year we did the trends and projections presentation in December, we might do that again this year where we actually go over 80, 100 slides and you actually see where are we trending and where are we going. It's a lot more detailed. And so we try to take out the grants like that because it does confuse where our actual trend is in terms of our actual expenses and all that. So that is something we're keeping in mind.
I wanted to ask specific because I think we've been moving towards having both sheriff and fire treated in similar ways. One specific thing that we're moving to, and I know this is towards the idea of shared services and billing. We talked about that with GIS. At least the way that post our meetings and some communications I had read it, is that we've increased a line item to cover some of the increased cost billing for GIS, but it seemed with fire they were getting a bill that was taking out some of those savings. Did I read that correctly?
I think that is not. The reason that we see the increase in fire in the sheriff's office in GIS is because we created the GIS Internal Service Fund.
Right.
And the purpose behind that was that it is an enterprise application. We want to be able to charge out accurately to the departments that use it and the external entities that use it. And we have some long-term liabilities to make sure we can keep our platforms up to date.
Right.
Is that answer that question?
The question I'm saying is to the sheriff's office, if we are billing the sheriff's office for GIS services, let's say it's $30,000. I've got the number there in the email, but $30,000. Are we then increasing the sheriff's budget by $30,000 to cover that? We're also billing the county fire department for GIS, but we're not increasing their amount. That amount is having to come out of what is a reduced budget. And so in that way, both of them are paying, but one of them is the sheriff's office is paying, but we are budgeting that in the budget. The other one is county fire is paying, but we are not giving them additional amounts to cover it. Like one we're basically charging or giving the money and then charging it back. The other one we're charging and having it come out of the existing funds, right?
That's not accurate. Both departments have a line item for the expense of the GIS Internal Service Fund, and that is why you don't see the full $2.1 million in the fire fund not being there, the savings being there, because we've added those numerous line items that I told you about, including the GIS ISF charge to all the departments.
So we're not allocating new funding to any departments that we're now billing for GIS?
We did.
Okay.
We added a line item to every department that was going to be billed for GIS.
Okay. Wanted to ask on the Station 76 roof. We talked about this a while back. We have our county capital planning project here. I just want to make sure, too, that we have that listed for anything that needs to be done on it. We had some discussions about the contract and the work that was done and directing that we wanted to have conversations about whether the contractor fulfilled that. Nonetheless, we also have a roof to make sure it still works.
Right. I'm going to let our Public Works Director answer the questions regarding that.
Good morning. We actually just got a quote for that roof. It's about $59,000. So we'll be looking at our B&I line item in capital, determining whether we can pay for it out of that or whether we come back to your board at adopted and ask for one-time funding.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, since we kind of covered that specifically before, and it's good that we have a number now, why is that not? I didn't see that at least in the capital projects.
We didn't get the quote in time to add it to the list.
Okay, but I mean, we can put a line item, an up to line item for what we think it might cost, and we didn't.
We were going to bring that back at adopted in
Okay.
September. The other thing is there's a possibility that we use that CDBG DR grant, the one-time grant, to fund that, and so we're also looking into that at the same time.
Okay. I wanted to check in on the ambulance fund as well. The cost increase there for that enterprise fund was pretty substantial. Obviously, we had a transition. I believe in talking with Sean, there was $1.5 million, or there was an allocation that was taken by the department in the transition by service providers. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not aware of
Oh, Mike.
I don't know if they can speak to that. I'll bring up the budget numbers for this year.
Yeah, there we go. And
Yeah.
so that was the thing that I wanted to ask about. Is it went, this is supposed to be more or less a revolving fund within itself, a little budget island. So seeing it starts with 3.8, the revenues coming in are 10.6, the expenses are 4.5. I would expect this year that the expenses would be a little more than the revenues, but that's quite a substantial change. So.
Good afternoon, Annie Hawkett, Health and Human Services. What you're seeing there primarily relates to the purchase of the Cedar Road building that we acquired with the intent to renovate that into ambulance quarters and administration.
I thought we had used one time some of the ambulance fund balance from last year and had done an allocation to do all of that.
So maybe I missed your question. Maybe you can repeat it if I did not.
I'm just
capture
wondering
it.
where is the $4 million between revenue and expenses within this enterprise fund? Was it just transition costs? Was it one-time costs? Or is there something about the contract where we should be concerned?
No,
Because according to this, if it continued, we'd be out of money by like 4 months from now.
Right. I think, and I'll look back to my fiscal staff if they want to correct me, but primarily that is that construction project.
Okay.
We are keeping an eye on that. As you're noting, that contingency is greatly reduced from last year. The contract itself that you're referencing, that was not an increase. So primarily it is that construction. And then just operating costs. Everything is costing more. Ambulances, equipment, all that goes into that.
Okay, great. I'll just leave it with one last, two last ones.
Yeah. No such thing as one last one with you.
So in the new stuff that we're using general fund allocations, one was brought up was the juvenile detention HVAC system. We briefly talked about it. You mentioned it's hot. As I talked about, that's never come up to me before, seeing that in the budget. We have talked about buildings we've shut down, like ANF, because the temperature rose. I've never heard that on probation, and maybe that just wasn't shared. But it's $250,000, which is quite a bit. That one has a line item, which kind of means like we're doing it. We haven't had a board item saying, like, what is the system? It's a software upgrade, right? So all to say is, are we then planning to do that? Is this going to come back to the board for any discussion, or are we just trusting that the software kind of increase on the HVAC we're just doing that?
Well, I believe these are estimates right now, but I'll let our public works director speak to those also.
The software to run both the detention center and the juvenile center is timing out, and we have to replace it to keep those systems going. So
Okay.
we don't have an option. So that is the quote that we got to have the work done, and that's why we included it in the capital list.
What do you mean the software is timing out? Like a subscription is ending? The company's closing?
I'm not using the right words. It's we need to replace it. The version is no longer supported.
Okay.
So.
Windows upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you use SAP? No.
And so
More
it's
details?
$250,000 for the software that specifically runs the HVAC system? Yeah, I mean, that sounds like an upgrade to the HVAC system, not the software for it.
They're the control systems that run our items. The one that's used out there is from Johnson Controls, JCI. And this is what basically is a communication brain for the mechanical system. So with that, it is at age, it's not going to be supported any longer, and it is proprietary. All of the control systems for HVAC systems of this size tend to be proprietary. So when it's disappearing and no longer being supported, it's giving us error messages, and it will literally shut down an HVAC system that's otherwise mechanically fine.
Mm.
Does that make sense for you? We're caught at the fact of you have to have the operating software. So yeah, think of it like Windows to work with this.
It seems like a lot. And is it breaking down currently?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's every time
Does
we
it- the
call
answer I had
Johnson Controls out, if we call out Johnson Controls to look at this, it's usually a $3,000 bill.
Right. The answer I had received was not that the subscription was ending, but that there was temperature issues there, which is a different thing. That's a performance issue and not like we have to replace it. But anyway, thank you. Appreciate the answer. The last one on it, I wanted to ask, one of the priorities you talked about was the, I said two last ones. So this is the second last one?
The second last one.
Second last one, thank you. Yeah, we're right on track.
Remember, we still have lunch, so.
Oh, we can go through lunch. You're right. So I wanted to ask Roger on one of our board priority goals, and I appreciate a lot of these, especially the courthouse, and that's been a long running thing to try and turn that into a usable owned facility to get out of some of the rentals and do a little bit of a shuffle. In achieving a lot of the priorities I think that we set out, one that I didn't really see was related to me what the whole underlying thing of this is we need more revenue. We need large revenue projects. We talked extensively at the board about that. So whether that is looking at hotels, whether that is looking at Main Street revival efforts, whether that's looking at the utility scale solar, I mean, a warehouse, shipping, receiving, distribution center. Where in the budget is reflected that priority for large revenue generating projects, including utility scale solar?
So what you probably won't find that in the budget as a line item because it's not there. We do have items that address the revenue generation as a whole. The priority for the board was to reduce rent spaces.
No, not those.
I know, but let me finish, please.
Mm-hmm.
We have pay down debt early, improve grant management and grant writing processes, promote large project economic development, including solar energy, and identifying sharing services. The reason it's not in the budget right now is, one, some of these are longer term things that we will have to implement over the 2 years that this board has set these as a priority. And two, we just don't have the staff to do everything that's on this list. It's just not feasible. So the stuff that we have already been working on, like reducing rented spaces and making it a priority to pay down the debt, those things we were already working on before the board priorities were set. So they have been a priority in the budget for this year because those are already in the motion. Very little regarding economic development has been a priority for my office since I've been here. So since we made the changes in 25. So those are not in the budget. They are longer term planning. Sean and I have been working on a performance dashboard for this board and identifying some timelines, and that some of those larger economic development projects are in there and do have some timelines. They're just not reflected in this budget today.
Okay. Well, the reason I was going to jump in is because that covered all the board priorities, which is not what I was asking. I was asking on the economic large revenue generating projects with utility scale solar. You're mentioning it takes time, staffing, planning, and I agree. This is not the priority session. This is the budget session. So it concerns me that there's not really a specific line item or a staffing position being created, not only because it's a board priority, but because if we were to get a new hotel, that is $1.5 million. I mean, that is we have to grow our way out of it. If we get a 500 unit housing project, that's substantial revenue increases. So that is something that is probably my core concern here, besides maybe some more support for fire, is that seems amongst that list. I started off with credit. A lot of those things are checked off, and I see it. That is one that seems to be completely not checked off, which is concerning to me. We did have a change with the economic development position. We obviously removed that, and I don't think that was working at the time. Nonetheless, we're hitting a capacity issue because we don't have a position that has direction to go work on what that would be. And we lost the housing specialist position as well, which was somewhat in that sphere. So that's a concern that I have. Anyway, thank you.
All right. Mine are going to be quick. So something you had mentioned is the sheriff's department, or we're contributing $750,000 extra into the PERS, right, to pay that down? And that's a mandated, right? And I bring that up
Yes.
because that's what we're told we're going to pay, not like, hey, can you kind of pay it? This is what you're going to pay.
No, yeah, this is what you're going to pay.
Right. So when people hear, well, how come you're doing that? It's because there's a lot of things that we are required to pay for that we don't have decision making in. Okay, so there's that one. How much more do we have on this elevator to nowhere?
So the total 4 years was in this year's budget, the 518, and then in this year's budget, 518. So for 2 years after that. So 2029 budget would be the last, 28-29 budget would be the last one to pay.
Another $2 million?
Yeah, total of about $2 million. Yeah.
So we still owe ourselves $2 million for that.
After this one, it'll be $1 million after 27.
Oh, so okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right. Okay, so it's $1 million. All right. The roads and things like that, and maybe this is kind of more for Blossom, is I know that we are aggressively working on our audits to free up some of those monies. In a perfect world, all the audits are completed. Donnie's a rock star. It gets all done and over with. How much more would you anticipate in the near future that would help us with the audits, with the money that we are adding extra into our project, into our roads department?
We have approximately $29.5 million in funding being withheld right now.
Okay, so it's about $30 million. So in a perfect world, we got all of our audits done. The government says we're great again. Then that would be in the near future, 5 years, another $30 million. So what we're adding on, what we're putting into the projects now will greatly help us out in the future with a striping machine and things like that.
Yeah, we've got about $3.2 million in road maintenance funding. We've got about 18.6 in that CDBG project, which is a mixture of road and facilities projects. And then we have another $7.5 million in bridge and safety projects.
Okay, all right, thank you. The library that we rent from Stitches up in Groveland, do we know approximately how much that is that we pay in rent? That's going to be just kind of a left field question. And before you make the journey up here, my question is that I know that Stitches and the organizations in Groveland pay the county $10,000 a year to have the fifth day. Wouldn't it make just more sense to see if we can reduce come up with a way to say, hey, look, we're not going to pay rent as much, but we're going to fund that fifth day?
Yeah, so we actually don't pay anything in rent. What we do is we contribute toward the cost of the maintenance of the building and keeping the grounds around the building.
Okay.
So it's sort of an exchange, and then they give us the money to have the extra day open. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I was given some bad description, how they thought that was working out. So thank you.
Oh, I think it's.
No. How it was explained to me was different than what I thought we had discussed. That's why I wanted to ask the question. So, all right, okay. And I think that's it for me. Supervisor Hawley.
Thank you. I'm still concerned that we're spending over $2 million of last year's money, one-time money on operating expenses. I still think we need to, I know I keep hearing we're going to get there. I just think we need to get there. We just rip off that Band-Aid and get it done. I know we looked at employees and reductions, and you can see by that chart, we've made a great reduction in that situation. I think this year, what we need to look at is what we're spending on outside vendors and expenses. And, I just see the IT guy, so I'll say, how much, are we buying?
Supervisor, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Is look at how we're
trying
spending
to keep everybody on the
expenses,
same field.
Yeah. How we're spending those expenses. So I have a couple questions in there. I went and looked at, in our capital expenses, we have $250,000 to raise a header at the fire station. So yesterday I went over, climbed up in the roof because I'm like, how are we spending $250,000 to raise the header to make the door slightly taller? So I think we need to look at like how we're allocating money. Blossom did tell me last year that we approved $50,000 for that sink downstairs for Justin's and came in at $5,000. So I thought that was great. That the golden sink is only made like a silver sink now, so that's good. So I think we need to look at some of our outside vendor contracts, like where we can spend that. So that'll be my question: is can each department look at what they're doing? Can we do some items in-house to help reduce and close that $2 million gap for the next coming year? So I had a couple questions. I was trying to get hold of Nathan, but we didn't connect yesterday, so maybe I could ask him or whoever has the answers to it. I know, Roger, you said we were going from 82% allocation to 84%, which is $168,000 roughly. Or maybe Nathan could answer that. Why? If we historically have always done 82, why are we going to 84?
Hello, Board.
Hey.
Nathan Gorham, Assistant Chief, Tuolumne County Fire, CAL FIRE. To speak to the 82 to the 84% increase,
yeah,
there's a change from 10.77 to 11.43% in the administrative rate. And to articulate back when we mentioned the 5% year after year over, that is on the not to exceed cost. But
okay.
I can report that we are on track coming in at 82.39% of the not to exceed cost for this year, which is a projected savings of $2,002,090 off of this year's not to exceed contract amount.
Okay, so we're doing a 5% increase for $420,000. That's just the general contract increase. And then you're saying we went from 82 to 84 because of administrative? I want to make sure I'm understanding this right.
The admin rate increased from 10.77 to 11.43, so there's a little bit there.
What does that mean? Like translate that for the people at home, like the admin rate, like what?
The administrative rate of what it costs to maintain the contracts respective to at the unit level and at cooperative fire protection at the Sacramento program level.
So this is going to Sacramento to maintain an already agreed upon contract?
Not necessarily. They help facilitate, organize, implement the contracts where we provide the administrative and operational oversight here at the unit level.
And that's, okay. Okay. And then we had 30.
I would like to articulate that I was more than available yesterday. I did send you text messages as well as phone calls. However,
we had like 18 other people
calling. It's unfortunate
calling,
that we were unable to connect because I could have been better prepared for this question.
No, you answered it perfectly. I just didn't know. So, and then we spend $36,000. I think it's good, by the way, we're raising the volunteer program. I hear our counts up on volunteers, or it's rising.
So this is an addition. Your volunteer program, you still currently have 8 in a county of 55,000. We've historically had a county resident firefighter program, which is like a bridge intern program.
Okay.
And we're seeking the funding to keep the allocations to have those 6 positions across 3 of the 4 stations.
Okay.
However, last year it was funded at $8,700, yet we spent over $16,000 to accommodate it by taking from other line items in the county fire budget.
Okay, is that for that's in the volunteer section? It's like 66,000 or something we got for volunteer section this year or something like that, I think Roger told me, or in the email.
So if you're referencing the email, we're hoping to utilize $36,000 to establish the newly created Columbia College Fire Academy Regional Internship Program.
Okay.
Would you like any information on that?
Well, no, we create that, so it's to help those positions, right? But eventually they become, I'm assuming, CAL FIRE employees because we don't have our own county fire employees. So that's kind of what we're doing with that, is that to help get them in the system, to get them interested in it and stipends, that type of thing?
Yes, absolutely. So we've always had their resident program. This is establishing a framework to bring the workforce development aspect, working through the college. I've worked with interim president Chad Redwing, the vice president of instruction, Donna Cooper, as well as Brandon Price, the CTE coordinator, to create this. This has been the brainchild and a pathway created by that program to bridge getting them out of the academy into jobs and getting the required on-the-job training, as well as working on the state fire training task books. And of note, of the 13 fire service all-risk providers in the county, all but 2 of them are participating in this, and we are one of them, or hope to be one of them.
Okay. So our volunteers are, because I thought Roger said the volunteer count was up, but it's not up.
The volunteer account last year needed a correlating increase because they responded to so many state and federal agencies.
Not money, number of volunteers, sorry.
Number of volunteers, no, decline.
Okay. Maybe I misunderstood then.
I think
No, I
the
probably
last time I
misunderstood that
reported out in the fall, we were at 9. And
I was
now we're
excited.
at
I thought Roger said we got more volunteers, but turns out it did not. Okay.
I think I counted those 6 that he was talking about resident. I thought they were volunteers.
Yeah. So there's an intern program.
Yeah.
A resident program, which is allocated for 3 bodies, and then there's the 8 volunteers.
Cool. Chief Cashy, nice to see you. I see him hovering in the back there.
Good morning, Board. Nick Cashy, Fire Chief. So for the administrative rate, that increase that you see there, that's for pro rata and indirect services you receive from the contract. Essentially, all of your payroll, workers' comp, all those things that you don't have to provide personnel for that we handle administratively is incorporated in that fee. That fee does adjust every once in a while. The county's been a benefit of it going down before. Sometimes it goes up. And as long as we're under the not to exceed cost, we're still meeting our terms of the agreement. The other thing that you may see that does go down and up as well that affects the actuals is the staff benefit rate. Certain times that'll get paid down at the state level for PERS buy down, and it'll come in at 62%. Other times it'll be in the 74, 84, 90 percentile. So those are some fluctuations there. So as long as we're coming in under the not to exceed cost, we're still in our allowables. But just so you know, it doesn't just go to Sacramento, but it goes to providing all those administrative services that we have through the contract. That's the built-in fee for that. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you guys' PERS rate goes down sometimes. Ours just goes up. That's all.
Well, when we budget, some of those years when that rate does go down due to the PERS buy down, you'll see a significant actual decrease for the county, and then it goes up the next year, and we're in the podium again explaining why it's going back up and trying to ride that articulation. If there's a need to know specifically more of the breakdown for the pro rata and the indirect that you receive from the administrative rate, we'd be happy to get Co-op Fire to come in, provide you some information.
That's fine.
Thank
Thanks. Jaron kind of touched on the ambulance fund. I was concerned as well that's getting cut in half. So maybe, Andy, you could just email us and find out if taking out the purchase of the building and all that, like if the income and the expenses are how they're kind of faring out minus that other stuff out of there. Because that was a big gap or a big change all of a sudden to see that thing cut in half. See what else. I think that's about it I had for the questions. And then we still budgeted, we still have the generator in there, I think the budget, right, for the fire station? Or for one of them, or both of them, or something like that? Okay. So maybe we could look at buying a used Traveler one. I'm still on the same thing. Like, instead of spending $250,000, maybe we can get like a trailer mounted one and take it between the 2 stations if one's out and the other one needs it or something. It's not too often the county's out countywide. So that might save some money there. So I think that's about it.
All right. All right. Try that again. All right, we'll open it up to public comment. Anybody wish to come up and talk about the budget? Anybody still awake? Oh, okay. Couple head nods. Afternoon, Mr. Thomas. Welcome back.
Good afternoon. Thanks, and happy 4th of July ahead of time. It's going to be great. 250. I love it. I wasn't going to say anything. I was kind of glazing over back there, actually, but I heard the mention of Station 76 and the roof, and I almost fell out of my chair because that's why I ended up ever coming to these meetings back in 2022 when that roof was first on one of the agendas, and it was actually a signed contract by Tracy Riggs, and everyone voted on it for $246,000+. And so as I was glazed over back there, I wasn't quite sure if I heard it right, but this, I'm assuming, is a line item in this next year's budget for capital improvement for that roof for 58 or something. He can't answer, so I'll just get a roll with that.
We can't answer right now.
Anyways, I feel like, wow, 4 years later, and finally, because I asked multiple times after that contract, whatever happened to it, it was signed, the money was allocated to be used, and nothing ever happened. And I never got an answer as to why nothing ever happened, which is fine, I guess. But, you know, Mike had the most expensive deck ever that he was not happy with. I had the most expensive roof ever. And now we can actually get this roof done for what I would say is an appropriate bid, and that sounds awesome. $58,000, I think, sounds great if that's what it is. So yes, fiscal responsibility is possible. So thank you if that's what's happening. Thanks.
Ms. Schmidt?
I don't know if this is possible, but just for the community to be better informed, is if we could have a general fund line item report or copy, and then also a list of grants per department. And then could you also mark on the budget what is a mandatory payment in each department or each area of the budget, so we understand that that's mandatory. Thank you.
All right, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. So at this point, I think we've kind of gone over it. What I'd like to do now is, as it's kind of presented, again, this is a projected, so I'd like to ask for a vote to approve the projected, and then obviously over the next few months, we'll be working with the county and the staff to come up with the actual, which would then be presented for approval in the end of September. Correct? Okay.
Are we not having discussion?
If you wish to have discussion, we can. I thought we answered all our questions.
Correct. Questions, just not discussion or
Okay.
comments at all. I had 4 things here. One is the A87 item is really concerning to me, and I think we need to have a full item coming up on that. Why the changes are there, how it's calculated. The direction before was to recover 100% of direct and indirect costs for unfunded mandates to protect the general fund and be able to cover that. I think that still should be the standing order, and I think it is. If there were changes in how the audits look at it, administration looks at it, board looks at it, that's great, but we should really talk about it, because that is a substantial change causing some financial pressure. 2, I think we should be looking at the workers' comp fund, potentially trying to, between now and adopted, consider borrowing against that to pay off some of our high interest debt. We talked about this last year. I know that we're looking at this, and adopted is one of the goals when we get more clear numbers, but the public safety bond that we had that went back to a prime interest rate is far higher than the 4% return we're currently getting, having that parked in a bank account. And so paying ourselves back internally, we would actually be saving a lot of taxpayer money potentially. That's one of the biggest funds we have. It is more than healthy. It's sitting there. It could be earning us 8% by paying off debt than earning 4% in interest. The third thing was, fire has taken a massive cut with Station 56. I know that they've been, I think, troopers in every single budget to try and make a lot of these costs come in. And I know that insurance has gone up. I understand what we're doing with GIS. I think that we need to do better with some of these costs. And that's, there was a lot of very specific things that were brought up. I know we're looking at it in terms of just the budget here, but I feel like the loss of a station and the loss of several positions, and then kind of adding these other ones and squeezing it. We try to have some level of, if we're making cuts, all departments are feeling that at some level and spreading it. I feel like these would be reasonable had we not just laid off 6 people and closed a station. So I'd like to see more support there. And the main thing, and this is what I'd like to open for discussion, because this is important to me, really in particular for this budget, and whether I'm comfortable voting yes or no, really is the economic development item. We have made cuts. We have absolutely made cuts. I've felt we needed to for a while. We did do it. We will probably at some point be making more cuts. We're worried about the HR1 impacts. We're have a lot of deferred maintenance issues. All to say is, I think a lot of the necessary reductions have happened. We've said it, everybody on the board at different points, we have to grow our way out of this in terms of revenue at some level. And I feel like if we don't take action to invest in something that creates that revenue, and not a small specific training 5 people into this job, or we're helping this one building get fixed, something that brings in millions of dollars, then we're never really going to start that. And it will take time. And just to even hire somebody to do that, get a position and a classification, and get them enough training that they know all the people, might be a year. And if we're ready with projects, I certainly don't want next year, then we have the budget to come forward and say, now we're going to create that position, whether it's the CAO's office or with the Economic Development District or some other entity. So that's just a concern that I have, and hopefully echoed by the board. That's the one priority, and my congrats again to the staff and the department heads. I think it checks a lot of the boxes, what we talked about for deferred maintenance on facilities. I'm also excited that we're putting more money into roads as we have in previous years, but making that more of a standard budget. I'm hoping we can put more into reserves and debt as we get adopted at the end of the year. But I think it hits a lot of these different things. That's the one, though, that is really important to me, and I just don't feel like we are putting anything into it.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the board? All right, seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I have some comments.
Okay.
I just wanted to see if anybody else wanted to chime in. I appreciate my colleagues' comments. One of the things, so there's a lot in here that I think it goes in the right direction. I agree with my colleagues' position on moving out of leased spaces. This is something we've talked about for a very long time. It costs a lot of money to do that, and that's a risk because you're asking people to spend taxpayer dollars on improving buildings without necessarily seeing a return on that right away. But if we are able to move into those, move out of rented space, which is when we have so much available office space in the county, it's pretty ridiculous that we are renting space. When we're able to move out of those rented spaces, we'll start seeing those costs that are going out and being paid in rent, staying here at the county. And so over time, that money will pay for it. That money that we're investing in refurbishing these buildings will pay for itself. The other thing that I like is of course, a transfer out to roads. I've advocated that for every single year. Sometimes it's happened, sometimes it hasn't. But in this particular year, we're able to do $725,000, which is a fair amount. Kind of going toward the question I had earlier, I'm very interested in making sure that the majority of that is spent on actual projects. We have a lot of equipment. We can kind of talk about that and debate it, but I'm not so focused on equipment, not as focused on staffing, except returning some of those positions that were frozen. But very interested in just the meat and potatoes, building new roads or improving the roads that we have. One of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit was this presentation. It accomplishes a lot, and I really appreciate the work that has gone into this, Sean and CA Root. There is still a lot that's not in this presentation. What we're hearing today is typically something that in years past would happen over 3 board meetings. So usually the first week, the second or third week, and then the last week of June approving the final budget. But we've kind of condensed that all into one meeting, and so there's obviously a lot less information. So I really encourage people to go online. This is more transparent than it was in many years past, but I guess a lot less information this year. But that information is still available if you go online to the county's budget portal. That's where I go. I mean, I don't have any inside information anybody else has. I go to the county's budget portal. I look at the charts just like anybody else can. And then I call Roger and complain about things I don't like in it. And then he usually talks me down from a roof and explains things. So the other thing is that I don't think that this budget does enough for fire. We made significant cuts, and we talked about it, and I'm not going to rehash that, but if somebody asked me what did we get for that reduction of a fire engine and the staffing to serve this critical issue in our community, I don't really know what to tell them. I don't know what we got for that. It sounds like a bunch of line items and costs that were kind of spread out amongst several things that are not really essential to the mission of public safety. So that's a concern. We do not do enough for fire in here. While I support some of these other things like the improvements to roads, I support the changing of the positions for the librarian, chief librarian and parks manager. That's something that advocated for a long time. The Friends of the Library has wanted that for a long time, so they're going to be very happy with that. So we do some good things in this. We do. I don't think we do enough with fire, but I think all in all we're accomplishing some of the key goals with this budget. The last thing is that I wanted to mention was Supervisor Brandon brought up A87. So your entire argument ditto for TOT. I'm very concerned with the path that we're seeing with the transient occupancy tax. It is not increasing at the rate that we had hoped it would. There are several factors for that. You know, there's national issues going on right now that are impacting the national forest, but we need to get a stronger understanding of what we should be expecting for TOT. It is, I would say it's fluctuating. It's certainly not increasing at the level that had been predicted. So that's going to be something we have to accept and maybe downgrade our expectations with what we can spend TOT dollars on. And I think that deserves a discussion, a agendized discussion about what is the future of TOT and where should that money be going. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Supervisor Kirk?
I have a question in wake of his comments. Sean, with the general fund contribution to fire, didn't we go from 3.2 million to 5.7 million? Okay, so we almost...
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So with this budget, Roger knows when I got back, I had lots of questions. We're going to continue to hammer some of this stuff out in the next couple meetings. But I see scattered throughout here a clear commitment to our priorities, which is to maintain law enforcement. Fire, the general fund contribution has gone from 3.2 million to 5.7 in this budget. Road materials, this for me is probably one of the biggest things, and although I'm excited that we're doubling more money for the road material, I feel like we're still way far off. If you look at the 887, we just had to do it, kind of like Mike said. We just need to rip the Band-Aid off, and if we're going to make these priorities, we need to make them a priority. So I'm going to continue to push in this budget that an additional 700 is not enough. We need to get to the allocation of TOT that we told the voters that we would get to. So although it's great, we got 2 more staff coming, we got more road materials coming, more equipment coming. We need to get there and get there in a hurry, is my opinion. Of course, some specifics that I'm going to be looking for in the future budgets is what specific debts are we going to be paying down, and what we kind of know an idea of what specific rented spaces we're going to get out of. But I really need a timeline, Roger, because we've been talking about this and going towards this for I think 2, 3, 4 years. We need to get there. The faster we spend the money and the faster we get out of these spaces, the more money we save. So I'll just kind of be pushing for that in the future board meetings. And I do think it's important to forecast, especially like Campbell said, TOTs. The projections are off, so I think we need to have some sort of, maybe not a full-blown trends and projections workshop, but I think that needs to be part of the conversation, so we just kind of have an idea. And with that being said, thank you guys for your work on this. Again, this is the first meeting of several. But I appreciate the time, and thank you guys.
Okay, so I only have a couple things. So something that Supervisor Brandon said is we didn't lay off any of the 6. They weren't our employees, so they were reassigned of the fire personnel.
Right, but it's important that we're clear on that.
Well, I understand, but we did not lay off 6. He said we laid off 6 firefighters.
Yes,
we did not lay off 6.
You're correct that they are not. It's not that they lost the job. I should have said eliminated 6
I know.
positions.
The reason why I bring that up is because Roger made that comment earlier that we didn't lay them off. Right? There's still fire employees unless I don't know something. But yes, that was part of that process. I just wanted to make sure that. Thank you. And then, Supervisor Campbell's position or a statement of, well, what did we get by closing 56 and doing the statement or what we have? The reality is that we've probably strengthened our current 4 stations, plus we're looking towards the future of how we can better boost our responses and our fire department when they go to 3O staffing. So the hard cuts that we made now, which were definitely reflected in our budget, will pay off in the future. At least that's the goal of this board, I believe. And then lastly, to Supervisor Kirk's position, I think, as it was mentioned earlier, there's $30 million tied up. So maybe, because of the audits, maybe we should look at assisting the auditor's office, maybe be hiring a consulting fee or consulting firm or somebody just dedicated to get all those audits done. I'll leave that in Donnie's hands, but maybe that's a discussion. We spend a little money to get a lot of money back. So we do have those options. So I like the idea of discussing further as we go down the road, as we get towards September, of asking for what we want to really spend our money on and develop projects and things like that. So I think those are all noble causes. So that's my comments. And Supervisor Holland, your final thoughts or comments.
Sean, will you pull the slide that has the 887 on it? So to agree with, I think Jaron brought this up. Remember, this is not how much we're collecting, this is how much it's growing each year. And you look at that and say, well, it's down in 22, but somehow it grew in 23 to $1.4 million, then it grew another $1.5 million, and then 25 it grew 2.2. And now it's minus 331. So there's a good conversation to have, like what was going on to cause that, because that is just some crazy numbers of, this is a math formula that we charge internally to other departments that are not general fund, of like what's happening here. Because I think that is worth the discussion of what's going on. Did we fix the math equation? Did we figure out what the math equation is? I mean, there's just huge difference, and you can see that by the percentage growth at the bottom. I think it's worth definitely that conversation of what's going on, what was happening then, what's happening now, and what's going on. So anyways, that being said, I'll make a motion that we approve the 26-27 recommended budget as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. With that being said, it's a motion by Supervisor Holland, second by Supervisor Kirk. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstentions? All right, so it passes 4-1-0. Okay, that, I believe, is the last item on the agenda. I do have one. I told him this was coming, so we're going to get it out of the way now. So, as you all know, we do have a new county council coming on board starting tomorrow. I do want to publicly tell Dan I appreciate everything. This will be his last meeting with us. I'll let you celebrate privately if you choose. But I just want to say thank you for the board. I'll let my colleagues chime in as well, but, we appreciate everything you've done. Filling in, giving the advice, locking horns. Sometimes I didn't always get what I wanted, but I appreciate your guidance. I just want the people of the county to know that you really provided us a great service and helped out when we were in our recruiting phase. We will hate to see you go, but I'm glad to see you go. So, board?
I'll just say if you would have applied, I would have hired you, Dan. So thank you for your service, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Anyone else?
We have way better weather up here than Fresno. All to say is the same. We were, that's the open secret of it. It is expensive, and your time is very valuable in that, and we've been paying for that. That said, what you came into was a difficult, complex time, not routine for the county, going through a lot of issues, and having lost somebody that had spent a very long time building that team and that office. And so thank you, because this wasn't just another random contract. You were filling a critical position for us during a difficult time after losing somebody like that with big shoes to fill. And it did really help us to be able to get through that. So thank you, and hopefully we'll see you again too.
As long as you're not against us. We don't want to see if you're against us for any reason.
Yeah, he can't sue us now, right? Isn't that a conflict?
Yeah.
Are we safe now?
Not for a while.
Not for a while.
All right.
I'll take it.
Hey, I just want to say thank you once again. Everybody who stuck around, I appreciate your time and your interest in our process. This is your process. So with that being said, we will see you all on July 7th. Have a great day. Thank you.